Welcome, we're all good to go. Thank you, Pamela. Welcome, everybody, to the June 23rd, 2021 Town of Newcastle work session. We had a brief work session yesterday just to adjourn matters because of the primary, not to get involved with that. We wanted to make sure there was time for the town to do what they needed to do. So that being said, Nick, the first issue that we have before the town board is the salary adjustment. So I don't know how you want to introduce and first get into that matter.
Okay. Right. So the Jeremy is filling the role as acting deputy supervisor, and Jill, I think you or there's been some discussions about whether the board would consider giving Jeremy the salary that the supervisor has, and that would be prorated from when you've assumed that position as of last Wednesday, the 17th, until you're no longer the acting supervisor. And that would be when the supervisor is sworn in, which would be after the November election. Because the position of supervisor is vacant, the person who wins in November would immediately assume that position when they get sworn in. So we'd prepare a resolution that way. And there's also been discussions about recognizing that there was a period of time last year where you filled that position as well, acting as deputy supervisor, and you stepped up and performed the task and duties while the supervisor was absent for a period of time. And that was from a period of approximately March 1st to a date in April. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes.
Right. So that's really that's the issue for the board to discuss, is if they're interested in authorizing that payment, we would then prepare a resolution.
I would just add that Ivy did actually come back. I think around a few weeks later she was back, but I mean physically she was back at times. But I was in that position, for lack of a better term, during that period.
And this would not be any additional monies coming out of the funds, because it's money that has already been budgeted, but due to the resignation is not being spent, and you're assuming those roles and tasks. So it's up for the board's discussion.
And it's not in addition to my current salary.
Well,
it can
the
be.
new money is not in addition, because that's already been allocated, but the increase from before is, but it's not a lot. Because we would have been paying 2 supervisors then at the same time, but it's not a lot of money. Right?
Right. Prorating $42,000.
How much is it?
By 12. It's 42,000. Lauren, what did I tell you it was 42,800 and.
No, that can't be right.
That's
like a year.
No, you're prorating.
Right, it's prorating it. That's the total amount, and then we're
that was the amount. I'm like, that can't be right.
No.
Yeah,
Jeremy voted yes.
865.
Come on. Yeah. I'm sorry, 42,000.
865.
Yeah. So, and divide that by 12, and then the number of, months that he would be serving.
Well, I think the retroactive is a great recognition of the service that that Jeremy gave to the town in that very difficult time, and certainly fully supportive of Jeremy having access to all of the privileges of the supervisor role while he's filling the role.
I have no problem with the retroactive payment as long as he was actively serving. So when Ivy came back, he should not be being compensated for as a supervisor when Ivy was back. So as long as he was serving as it, I don't have a problem.
So
we'll have to finalize those dates.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I don't really need to repeat anything that everybody just said. So we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Good. So we'll see if we can get that resolution ready for this meeting. If not, then for the next meeting.
Okay. Great.
All right. So the next item on the agenda, pardon me, am I on mute still? No, I'm off mute. The next item on the agenda, the Community Development Block Grant Resolution. Jill, if you can, or Nick, if you can please explain what that is to the public.
We actually have Lucille Rossi here with us, who is our
Super.
representative to the county's committee. Lucille, welcome. Take yourself off mute. Come tell us about the resolution. Very excited about this grant application.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm happy to be here and to discuss this. We're trying to, we're doing a survey to see the usage, but the ultimate purpose is to upgrade the restrooms in the town hall to be ADA compliant. So very simply, the building was built in 1971, as you all well aware, and the bathrooms the restrooms haven't been updated and to accommodate the Americans with Disabilities Act. So Sabrina, briefed me on this. We're putting through the paperwork now, but the survey will be occurring later, in the year.
I think
So,
it's great.
is there anything else I should address?
Well, so there is a resolution that the board is going to be presented with later this evening in support of our grant application
Okay.
for the 2022 to 2024 fiscal year. And so during our town board meeting, that's going to be a little bit later on in our board meeting. We're actually going to have a public hearing and discussing in a little bit more detail what the grant proposal is about. And the board's going to be asked to approve the resolution. So we just wanted to take in, review it with you guys, see if there's any questions. We're very excited to be part of the Community Development Block Grant Program again. This is something that we were involved in years ago, and for whatever reason, we stopped, and now we're back. So we're really thrilled to be participating in it, and we're really thrilled to have Lucille as our representative to the committee with the county. So I think it's a terrific opportunity, and we're excited to see what other projects are coming down the pike.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lucille.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone who's used the bathrooms here who comes to town hall can certainly attest to the fact that they're not that user-friendly in the sense that for folks who need it in terms of ADA compliance. So thank you.
It's funny that one of those, unanticipated benefits of COVID is that we changed the upstairs bathrooms to single-use bathrooms, with a little sort of occupied one person at a time. And they really are single occupancy bathrooms. I don't care how many stalls you put in there. It's only one person can be in there at a time. So it's actually, it's worked out quite well. So let's see if we can actually get them done properly. The next thing on our agenda for discussion at work session is the authorization to set the public hearing on the local law to create Chapter 34 of the Town of Newcastle regarding the residency requirements for certain public officials. Nick, can you just give us a brief little overview on this?
Sure. So New York State has a rather archaic and complex requirement regarding residency requirements for certain employee positions. And a number of municipalities, particularly in Westchester County, are being faced with this now, that their existing code may not, and in some instances are not consistent with state law. And the state requires that certain positions that are deemed to be officers be residents. And the state also has over years granted exemptions on a number of cases. If you go to the particular provisions of town law, you'll see that special legislation is enacted making legislative changes to the residency requirements for chief of police as one example. And so when the state makes those provisions, you are then left with the option of either going to the state and asking them to make a special legislative act applicable just to your municipality. And the town has done this in prior situations with, I think, the town engineer as one example in that position. And so in course of review by Westchester County, had questions with respect to other positions. So rather than seek special legislation, we have the option of doing a local law, and the state law recognizes that. So the local law before you has a number of legal requirements that says why you're doing this and what state laws are being preempted. But the operative provision, is section 34-3 that sets forth the residency requirements. And it reads, any person holding an appointed public office within the town of Newcastle need not be a resident or an elector of the town of Newcastle, provided, however, that such person so reside within the state of New York or any county adjoining Westchester County, except that all members of local town boards and commissions shall remain electors of the town of Newcastle. So we're just clarifying that if you're on the planning board, the zoning board, and of course on the town board, you have to be a resident of Newcastle. But for the other or deemed to be appointed public office positions, which is not all employment position, it's a narrow subset, that they can be residents of New York State or county adjoining Westchester County. And so this would require the scheduling of a public hearing, which is the resolution before you tonight. It does not require any referrals because it's not a zoning legislation. So you would just hold a public hearing at the meeting that Jill was going to tell us it's going to be scheduled for. And then you could take action at that meeting.
Thank you, Nick. And did you say last week or the week before that there was, I don't know, not the right term, might not be audit, but that it was just being scrutinized more through municipalities?
It has, yes. So Westchester County Civil Service administers the civil service list and which positions are officers' positions, which ones are competitive, which ones need to be residency requirements. And they do what are called occasional audits. They'll review to see if not the person, but rather the positions are in conformance with the law. So they have now focused on that in Westchester, and a number of municipalities have received this notice. It's not unique just to Newcastle.
And I wanted to share that because I don't want to think that someone here is prompting that or we're trying to accommodate someone. This is just something that in the regular course of business that we've been asked to or need to examine.
And it's being done on a piecemeal fashion. So this way it's done across the board. And it's actually in the town's favor, given it gives you a larger pool of applicants.
Thanks, right.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. So on your consent agenda will just be a resolution to schedule this public hearing.
Okay.
Lauren, what date did we put it for?
We have said the 13th.
Terrific. That's perfect. Great. And we just have three administrative items: payment of claim, the adoption of minutes from June 15th, and also from yesterday, actually, June 22nd, and the authorization to enter into an agreement with Westchester County Department of Corrections, and it just has to do with prisoner transport.
Super.
So can we just hold over the June 16th, 15th minutes till next week? I didn't get a chance to review those minutes. I just want to.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
I think we did that.
We just, yeah,
Pull
not
it
a
out.
problem. I'll hold those.
I thought they were pulled out. All right.
Okay.
Any other announcements, Jill?
No, so we can go into our town board meeting.
Just the Jersey barriers, if you want to.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. The Jersey barriers. So we are the happy recipients of a donation of 11 Jersey barriers. It appears that the company that was working with Conifer to create the extra wide exit ramp to the Soy Mill Parkway needed them for their construction. The construction is completed. They've been asked to remove them. They're planning on removing them tonight. So there's a road closure notice going out for anyone there. And the company evidently had to transport them all the way back up somewhere upstate New York, and asked if we would like to take them, and we would love to take them. So we have a bill of sale that reflects the value of the donation at $3,000, and we're going to ask the board to accept that tonight, and we're very happy to accept 11 Jersey barriers gently used. So
Whoever thought such a great gift.
there you go. You know, speak to Bobos. They think it's a fabulous gift, actually. Tom and I just had an interesting conversation with them about that. But no, you could see what Bobos has done with the Jersey barriers. Actually, it's like created this wonderful little safe eating area in front of the train station. So they're really helpful, and they're actually tremendously helpful for us in our yard down at DPW, segregating areas. So all in all, just a great thing, and they don't have to take and transport these things all the way back upstate. So everybody's happy. Thanks, Lauren. Anything else I forgot, or that's it for work session?
I think that's it for work session, and we can adjourn this and get a motion to adjourn this and open up the town bar meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're a little early. It's 6:22. We moved through that pretty quickly. Welcome to the town board meeting for June 23rd of this great year. Any announcements before we start, Jill?
No, I'm just going to have a little supervisor's report. That's all.
Okay. So I have a supervisor report. I actually sent something out as acting supervisor. I believe it was already sent out to the community. I would just say that yesterday obviously was a big day in Newcastle and other parts of the state with the Democratic primary and other respective primaries. And there's been a lot of contention and a lot of different views and a lot of different opinions. But as I said in the supervisor's report, at the end of the day, no matter who gets elected, no matter who serves, we're all going to work together for the people in this town. That we're all going to work together as best we can. That's why we're doing this. It's not about fighting for the sake of fighting or disagreeing for the sake of disagreeing. Although obviously people do disagree, and that's understandable and okay. In fact, oftentimes when there's disagreement, it makes things better. But I think the public should absolutely know that at the end of the day, whether you're town staff, a volunteer, or an elected official, no matter who voted for you or didn't vote for you, we're all going to do what's best for this community. Other than that, my supervisor's report, I sent it out and I'll leave it there. Jill, anything you'd like to share in your administrator's report?
Sure. I'm going to have to speak really slowly because our public hearings weren't noticed until 7 o'clock. So
well, we can also adjourn it for a little bit. I mean, and come back.
Yeah, I'll just give my quick administrator's report, and then if we want to take a little break, we can do that and come back. We can see if there's any public notice.
Well, what I can do too, I can board people and just go through the supervisor's report because there are some events in town that are worth noting. If we're here, I might as well share them. But go ahead, Joe.
We can also open the hearings and make sure that we don't close them until after 7 p.m. And so that way, if a public shows up at 7 p.m. and has questions or comments.
I prefer to wait.
Okay.
Because people should have the opportunity to hear the whole thing. I think that's fair. So let me actually do this, Jill. Let me just fill in some things here because it's not fluff by any stretch. It's actually very important. Lisa was with me. We have 4 Eagle Scouts, and Lisa can attest to it. It was a little hot. It was in the sun, but there was 4 Eagle Scouts. And for those who don't know, when you become an Eagle Scout, there's certain requirements, certain community involvement, and there's, I believe, was it 21, Lisa, 21 badges, but that may have been in merit badges, which only 4% roughly of scouts get. And these 4 young men really stand above and beyond, and they really certainly symbolize the sort of the best of Newcastle. They're young in age, but not young in terms of their civic duty and their responsibilities. And I just want to touch base and say there's 4 gentlemen. It's Kevin Mendez, Tommy Keene, Joseph Blair, and Raphael, or evidently Rafe Cofino. And Kevin created a duck pond and pennant the Westmoreland Bird Sanctuary. The joke was that the coyotes were very displeased, but fortunately they don't give the badges. Tommy discovered and cleared the lost trail at Greeley Woods. Joseph created a rest area at Whipple Park that anyone who's gone to that park certainly would know how great it is. And Rafe created some educational material regarding blood pressure counts, which no doubt is beneficial to a lot of people in the town. So they did a terrific job. And Vidat Gashi was there as well and basically honored all them, giving them the county was having their own special day for these individuals. For example, Kevin Mendez Day, Tommy Keene Day, and they were on the big Jumbotron. And Jill and I were discussing, at least going forward, we certainly can mimic that on our mini Jumbotron, or I don't know if you can call it a mini Jumbotron or just our Tron. So that we can also celebrate these people who do so much, not just for Newcastle, but beyond. There's a blood drive at the middle of the firehouse on July 10th. You can sign up in advance for that. There's a blood shortage. I don't know if anyone was given blood in the past, but if you have, you routinely get hit up, asked for blood, and asked to donate. It's important that we do so. It's from 9:30 to 3:30. Again, that's July 10th. And if you look at our report, supervisor's report, you can see a link and information to that blood drive. We are coming back with the fun over the summer. We're going to have the summer concert series, and that starts July 7th. I believe it is. And our first is Tramps Like Us that will kick it off. And I know they're a very big, popular favorite band that comes to play. So July 7th, please come. You know, I didn't write down the time. Is that 7 p.m.? Was that the time, if you know,
It
Jill?
usually starts at 7. They usually start at 7.
Right.
There'll
And
be a
well,
big
there's more
blast out
things.
from us.
Well, there's more things that people can sign up for. Just, you know, if you're a senior, you're also included as well. There's a tour of the horse, Greeley House, and we're having an ice cream social. So please, you know, go to the Newcastle Recreation and Parks webpage. And again, the link is on the Supervisors Report, and you can see what the town has to offer for everybody. Speaking of fun, we have Rye Playland is going to reopen after being dormant for a while. It's reopening on June 26th at noon, and there's a schedule for attendance in terms of when they're going to be open and close. Labor Day is when they are closing, but it's going to be an opportunity for people to get out, and it's certainly an asset to the county, and it's unfortunate it was closed for so long. What else can we tell you? For those people who are unaware, you are required to check your septic every 6 years and keep a record of it. Pardon me, every 5 years and keep a record of it. Although no one's prompted me over my 16 years, I don't know how many people have ever gotten asked for the record for your own house and your own property. You should probably do it anyway. COVID numbers are continuously dropping. Last week, we had 304 countywide with 2 in Newcastle, although we popped up to 1 to 3. So we're up 1 in Newcastle. It's down countywide to 234. So that's a real positive thing as well. So that's my supervisor's report. Nothing too exciting, nothing too sexy, but please feel free to read and click through the links that are sent out in your email. Jill?
Thanks. I've just got 2 quick things. Con Ed is in town doing a massive storm hardening project. They're replacing 100 utility poles on the following roads: Hardscrabble, Campfire Road, Ryder Road, and Barnes. The work has already started. There were some road closures. Campfire Road specifically was closed to all but local traffic last Thursday and Friday. Con Ed is going to be in town for the duration. So if you travel on any of those roads over the summer, please be patient, and please make sure that you allow yourself some additional time to get by. There are variable message sign boards up and around the areas where they're working, but unfortunately, there's no getting around it. We're thrilled that they're doing the work. It's a lot of work, and it's a hassle to have them on our roads. And when they're done, we're hoping that Verizon and Altice are going to be through as well, transferring over services that were on the original poles to the new poles so that we can get rid of the double poles that are going to be resulting from this project. So they have been notified about it. They are aware, and we'll be on top of them to make sure that they follow up and finish. Just a quick housekeeping thing on town hall hours. The summer hours for town hall has begun. This means that town hall closes at 3:15 on Fridays through Labor Day. And although town hall is open, appointments are strongly encouraged. It's again another unanticipated benefit of COVID is we found out that the appointments, prearranged appointments for people coming in was really a terrific success. So we'd like to try to encourage that as best we can. It really helped us with our customer service, and the public was thrilled as well. So thanks so much. That's all for me.
Hey, Jill, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I think I saw in between things today that Cuomo lifted the restrictions and we're going to be going back to in-person meetings. Is that correct?
We are.
Yeah.
We are actually, yeah.
The report. Yeah,
Yep.
it's great that we are going to be able to do that. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for reminding me. I put that in the report, certainly. Although, has he formally done it, or it's being listed?
He's announced that he hasn't issued a formal
Executive order
declaration.
yet. Yeah.
Right.
Soon by next week.
So it may be as early as tomorrow.
That's the expectation.
Right. So they listen. So that we would expect that our meetings going forward are going to be in person. It shouldn't really change things for the public. We will still have a Zoom link, and we have this fabulous Zoom board that allows the public to still participate via Zoom. There are still capacity limits on indoor venues. So right now our seating capacity for our assembly room is 11, and for the conference rooms it's 8. So although we will be in person, the public is going to be limited in their ability to come in and physically be there for a while. We are in the midst of retrofitting the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center to allow for interactive meetings there as well. So the same Zoom capabilities that we're able to do now, to have that translate to a public meeting, an in-person meeting at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. So allowing the public to be able to join in physically in person, but also via Zoom, and being able to, interact with the board members. So that's all in the works. We're hoping to have that up and running over the summer. NCCMC, Carrie and Lyle have been, again, instrumental in those upgrades. And so we're just waiting for the parts to come in and for them to be installed. So everything's ordered, and we're just trying to be patient.
Nick, I have a question for you, and I raised this with Jill when this was announced. If we're so inclined, what are our ability, nonetheless, without a state emergency, to say, yes, we can be in the Chat Act, for example, but you have to wear a mask? Because, while I tend to think, based on our numbers, I think we're at 77% in Chappaqua and 66 or so percent in Millwood. We rely on everyone just to be honest, but if people are coming in who haven't been vaccinated, there's going to be concern, and we don't want anything to spread. So what are our rights as a town post state of emergency to protect the public at these meetings and ourselves?
So you have a right to set what reasonable restrictions you want within your judgment as to the people, as to attendance protocols in your community. It's sort of like no shirt, no service, right? No shirt, no shoes, no service. So you can do so. So if you still feel social distancing is appropriate, taking temperature, whatever it may be, wearing masks, you can do so.
All right. Well, I wouldn't recommend anyone coming to a meeting without a shirt. I mean, to each their own.
So for town hall buildings, we have maintained the request that any visitors coming to town hall keep their masks on. We don't want to be in a position where we're checking people's vaccine status. They forget it, they forgot their card, they can't get the Empire State Pass, whatever the case may be. And for staff, we have asked that when they are in direct contact with the public, that they too wear their masks. But otherwise, members of our staff who walk around maskless in town hall have produced their vaccine certificates for us. So we've got them on file. So that's how we're dealing with it in town.
Great, thank you. I guess anything else that anyone on the town board wants to share before because I think we can handle public comment because we still have plenty of time. So anyone else on the town board want to share anything before we jump into public comment?
I'm not on the town board, but I do have a question. Mainly, maybe Nick could answer this. We have the zoning board coming up next Wednesday, and we noticed as being remote. How is that going to work?
Oh, so we've not discussed that with staff. We started discussing it internally. Assuming that the capability applies, the zoning board would have to attend in person, but the applicants, the public could still attend virtually, and that would be consistent with the noticing of the meeting. So there would be no need to cancel or adjourn or schedule those public hearings that have been noticed.
Thank you.
So Tom, that Zoom board that's in the conference room, that can be wheeled into the assembly room, and actually Carrie or Pam or whoever would have been working the meeting, via, managing the Zoom session, can still manage the Zoom board remotely. And so that the public can sit in, and you can have the applicant still there, their expert, sharing screens, the whole bit. So it's not going to look a whole lot different to you.
Great. So Pam, maybe we can open this up to see if anyone in the public had submitted anything in advance, or anyone here has any questions.
Do you want public comment at this time? Not for the public hearings, but just public comment?
No, just public comment. Just public
Okay.
comment. If you're here for any of the hearings, please wait for the hearing.
Okay, so if anybody in the public who has just a general comment, please raise your digital hand and you'll be allowed to speak. No one's raising their hand at this time. Oh, wait, one person. Dan Soloway. Dan Soloway, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks. I've been having terrible internet, so appreciate the time. I do have a question about ADA compliance because I was listening to the conversation about town hall upgrading the bathrooms, the restrooms, and that's terrific. But I had actually emailed with no response the buildings department about how permits are issued in regard to ADA compliance. So for instance, if a building or a business is being leased and changing hands, but it is not ADA compliant, how and why is a permit issued without a remedy?
Look, I can only speak to that a little bit. My understanding is that the most items are grandfathered and there's no requirement to make them ADA compliance unless they're making changes to the physical structure of the building or interior renovations.
I think, I don't know how it works in Newcastle. You are correct. Sometimes you need to have an alteration take place, but ADA compliance doesn't get grandfathered because it's federal. There's nothing that supersedes it at the local or state level.
Correct. My grandfather is with respect to the federal law. You're right. There isn't any. And I don't know, Tom, if you have any comments or thoughts on that. And I don't know if there's specific examples. There are some things that are mandatory to be complied with regardless of the grandfathering, but regardless of when the building was constructed.
If we're looking at change of ownership, then there would be no alterations to the structure. So therefore, there wouldn't be a requirement to update ADA. If there was a alteration level 1, 2, or 3, that would prompt certain levels of ADA compliance and percentages of ADA upgrades. It may not be a full ADA building, but it would require maybe a 20% input in ADA compliance.
You know, I certainly don't know this area of law, but, you know, thinking out loud, it would seem that if any time a building was sold or transferred or leased, that there had to be an upgrade to make it compliant, you would stymie the sale and lease of a lot of properties because people wouldn't want to take the financial burden and responsibility. That doesn't mean it, you know, it shouldn't be, but it just seems from a policy position. But I don't know that answer. But Nick, you know, we can, if it's an issue specifically that you have with a particular property in town, Dan, I mean, you could certainly also speak to the landowner or the property owner in terms of what he plans on doing or she planned on doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of properties in town that aren't ADA compliant. I would probably assume more than not because the buildings aren't new enough.
They very well be.
But what I have seen is store changeover without ADA compliance. Now, the owner of the store would be on the hook because both guests and employees wouldn't have accessibility, which could be litigated. I'm not bringing it up to create controversy. I'm bringing it up to minimize risk. We seem to have a lot of inclusivity in the language, you know, of the hamlet and of the town, but we kind of missed the ball on ADA compliance. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, and I think to Tom's point, a change in ownership does in and of itself doesn't trigger it. A change
Totally understand.
Yeah, so I think it's only when there's the alterations.
Right. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Anybody else?
No one at this time has their hand raised.
All right. So, Nick, I don't feel comfortable starting 20 minutes early in case people want to be here for the beginning. So,
do we want to do the consent item and the other resolutions that don't require the public hearings and just resolve that, and then won't take us very long, and then we can.
I'm certainly all right with that, and we remove the minutes in terms of the one that Lisa referenced. So I'm all right with that.
Right. So we would be adding the June 22nd ones and taking out the June 15th. These for tabling.
And payments of claims.
And we'd have to take out the block grant resolution, pull that out from the consent agenda as well.
All right, so why doesn't someone make a motion for a resolution for the consent agenda and payment of claims?
Okay, I can go.
Great, thank you.
Wait, did have it. Here it is. Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted, consisting of authorization to promote DPW water unit, authorization to hire DPW water unit, authorization to issue RFPs for preliminary engineering report, resolution authorizing acceptance of sewer main, resolution authorizing acceptance of a water main, authorization to renew annual ECI contractual increase for 2021 HVAC preventative maintenance Atlantic Westchester, authorization to attend 2021 Cornell Seminar on Appraising Assessor, authorization to attend IACP conference for the police. Wait, do we remove community development block grant resolution?
Yes, let's pull that one out.
Okay.
You could do the next one.
Authorization to set a public hearing on a local law to create Chapter 34 of the Code of the Town of Newcastle concerning residency requirements for certain public officers. Authorization to enter into an agreement, Westchester County Department of Corrections. Authorization to accept donation, Jersey barriers. And was there an adoption of minutes for June 22nd?
Yes,
Okay, adoption of minutes, June 22nd, 2021.
terrific.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $1,019,985.67 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, both dated June 18, 2021. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's just a date missing in this resolution, Jill.
Which one are you looking at?
The authorization to approve salary adjustment. Should I do 6/16?
Are you
Yeah,
doing that?
let's
now
do
or-
effective, June 16th.
Okay, but did you want to still do the prorated for the month of March, or what do you want to do? Guys?
Yes,
If
we
I get those
certainly,
dates.
yeah,
we
that
need to
one I'm
put
gonna have to
the
know.
dates,
So can we just do this one for now and then we'll do a modification
Okay.
for the other one?
Okay. I move to approve the salary adjustment for Jeremy Salan while serving in the position of acting supervisor, prorated to the annual salary of $42,865, effective 6/16/2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I say aye for myself, Nick?
No,
No,
you can't.
you cannot.
You're abstaining.
That's
All
a
right.
nay.
And then I move to approve the workers' compensation insurance renewal with New York State Insurance Fund, NYSIF, for the total annual cost of $370,757, effective July 1st through July 1st, 2022.
Yeah, there's actually a correction on that number. I'm sorry, I left out a fee. It's actually, sorry. It's actually 395,757.
As per mentioned by
Sorry.
Jill Shapiro.
So 395,000,
I don't think I need to.
yeah, 757. Gosh, sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alrighty,
We have Rockledge next, which we're not doing,
right.
now at least.
Okay.
Can we do the moratorium or we wait for that?
Can't do that until we
Wait,
hold
no,
the hearing.
we'll wait.
Oh, no,
No, this one we can do.
this one you can do because you've received, right, so on the moratorium, you received a comment from the planning board. They had no comments, so they completed their review. The county planning board had previously issued, they had no comments. So you're in a position to, and you held a public hearing and closed it. So
Okay,
you're in a position to adopt that one.
okay.
Lauren, were there any other public comments other than those received on the moratorium?
No.
Thank you.
Anyone want to read that or?
I can do it. So this is the number 5, right? We're doing here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I move to adopt the following resolution to extend for 6 months the moratorium imposed by local law 13 of 2018 for the North Greeley Avenue Business Corridor. Whereas the town board is currently drafting legislation to amend chapter 60 zoning of the Town Code of the Town of Newcastle concerning the regulation of retail, commercial, and residential uses for certain properties along the North Greeley Avenue business corridor within the BR retail business and BRP retail business and parking districts in the Chappaqua Hamlet in the Town of Newcastle. And whereas the potential exists that the review and approval of new land use applications will thwart or otherwise be contrary to the amended zoning legislation which the town board ultimately adopts. And whereas the town board adopted a moratorium on November 20th, 2018, which was filed with the Secretary of State on December 3rd, 2018, with respect to the review and approval of certain land use variance, building permit, and sign permit applications on certain properties within the BR retail business and BRP retail business and parking districts in the Chappaqua Hamlet in the town of Newcastle. And whereas the moratorium contained in Local Law 13 of 2018 expired on June 3rd, 2020, and was previously extended for 6 months by Local Law 6 of 2019, adopted by the town board on June 4th, 2019, and filed with the Secretary of State on June 14th, 2019 to expire December 14th, 2019 by Local Law 16 of 2019, adopted by the town board on December 17th, 2019, and filed with the Secretary of State on December 30th, 2019 to expire June 30th, 2020. By Local Law 8 of 2020, adopted by the town board on June 23rd, 2020, and filed with the Secretary of State on July 6, 2020 to expire on January 6, 2020, and by Local Law 12 of 2020, adopted by the town board on December 15th, 2020, and filed with the Secretary of State on December 22nd, 2020. And whereas the moratorium is set to expire on June 22nd, 2021, unless otherwise extended by the town board. And whereas on March 9th, 2021, the town board adopted a resolution to lift the moratorium except as to certain properties along the North Greeley Avenue business corridor as depicted in the attached map entitled Chappaqua Hamlet Modified Moratorium Area. And whereas it is the intent of the town board to extend for an additional 6 months the moratorium contained in Local Law 13 of 2018 for certain properties along the North Greeley Avenue business corridor within the BR retail business and BRP retail business and parking districts in the Chappaqua Hamlet to develop retail and commercial zoning legislation for the North Greeley Avenue business corridor. And whereas the extension of the moratorium is a type 2 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and accordingly no further environmental review is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby finds that extending the moratorium will allow the town to continue to maintain the status quo to effectively protect the public interest and welfare and ensure consistency with any adopted zoning requirements. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby extends for an additional 6 months the moratorium contained in Local Law 13 of 2018 with respect to the review and approval of certain land use variance, building permit, and sign permit applications on certain properties along the North Greeley Avenue business corridor within the BR and BRP districts in Chappaqua Hamlet in the town of Newcastle depicted in the attached map entitled Chappaqua Hamlet Modified Moratorium Area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. Do we have 4 ayes? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
sorry. I think I'm having a little trouble hearing. So forgive me. There were 3 ayes on our number 2 as well? Because Jeremy abstained. So there's 3 on that? Yep, okay.
Yes.
The earphones are shot or it's just the reception. I apologize. Okay. I don't think that there's anything else that we can do right now. It is 6:50.
Take
Want
an
to
adjourn for
let's
10
go
minutes,
minutes?
or I can tell lots of jokes.
I think we just
Yeah, I'm
adjourn.
gonna adjourn.
Let's adjourn for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no reason
Okay.
for us to be stared at.
All right, Pam, we'll be back in 10 minutes.
No worries, we're here.
So we just need a motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Move to adjourn for 10 minutes.
Second.
Be back at 7.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Everybody's it's live, don't worry, they'll be back. Welcome back, everybody.
What kind of dog is that, Pam?
Mine,
Wow.
part Min Pin, part Chihuahua.
So it must not bark much.
It doesn't at all.
Really?
No, she doesn't.
God bless.
Wow.
All right. So get us in order. Apologize. All right, so we are now on, so we have the motion to go back into the town board meeting? Do we have, I'm sorry, I didn't see if everyone's here. I apologize.
Yep, yeah, I need a motion to reconvene and come out of adjournment.
There I
So
see.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
We're missing Lori.
No, I see Lori.
There. She seconded.
Oh, gosh, why?
All
That's weird. Why am I not having everybody on my screen?
in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Jill, we have Rockledge Farm, the special use permit at 348 Whipple World Road that has been going on. I think this may be our third meeting with them, third public hearing, pardon me.
It is. I don't know why I'm stuck on only 12 people. We have more than that,
Let's take a look.
so I can't see who else is here. I don't know why. Whoops.
I believe you have everyone both from staff and the applicant for this for Rockledge.
Right. Tom, do you know who is leading this discussion on the special use permit?
Jerry Barrett is here to speak on behalf.
Oh, Jerry's here. Okay, great. Like I said, I'm stuck on just 12 people for whatever reason on my display, and so I can't see everybody else who's here. Hey, Sabrina.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I don't know, Pam, do you need to bring him in?
Who?
Jerry Barrett? So on the participant list,
I can bring him in, no problem.
you have also Madeline Wachtel has her hand raised right now.
Right, is she a participant?
She is part of the application for Rockledge Farm.
Okay, hang on,
And Bill Wachtel also has his hand raised.
here they come.
Annie Zabar is also part of the applicant's team.
And Nick, do we need a motion to open this and continue the hearing?
Right, so this is a public hearing on the application of Rockledge Farm for a special use permit within the R2A zone for an agricultural farm, which the applicant will provide more details on. In the agenda packet is a copy of the application as well as review memorandums from town staff, the planning board, and the county planning department.
And for those who are listening, this is the old Twin Oaks property.
And I brought in the Wachtels, Annie Zabar. Do we need Jerry Barrett as well?
Yes, you do. Thank you, Pam.
No problem. They're all here, or they will be.
So you will need a motion to open the public hearing, yes.
Someone like to take that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Shall I kick things off?
By all means.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for your time. So Today, we're discussing the special use permit for 348 Whipple Road. My name is Madeline Wachtel. I wanted to quickly introduce myself before I hand over to Jerry and my dad, William Wachtel. I will be the one managing the farm if it comes to fruition. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about it. So the hope is that we specialize in specialty cut flowers, herbs, and some other specialty produce, including strawberries. The goal is really to use regenerative organic practices. So I thought I'd quickly just touch on that a little bit because it is, paramount to what we're doing. Both for our products, but also because we're very environmentally minded. So a few of the practices we'll be taking on at the farm. First off is that we plan to have minimal till, which means we're not going to be using big tractors. We're not going to be tilling. We're doing this to increase soil health, to create a carbon sink, and to help with water retention. On top of that, about 50% at least of our plantings will be perennial, which means that we're not going to be disturbing the soil underneath. The real goal is to have the roots, strongly holding on to the soil and, really to not disturb the soil at all. We'll also be practicing companion planting, permaculture, cover cropping, crop rotation to ensure soil health, and rotational animal grazing. And we do this in part, again, to protect the land, the soil, and both the flowers and the animals and everything on our farm. I know that manure handling was also a very big concern, but just to touch on that again, for all those listening, llamas, goats, and sheep produce cold manure. They're cold pellets. They have pretty much zero odor. Every 3 days, we'll be collecting the pellets into buckets, and we actually spread that on our planting beds. It's known as, for gardeners and farmers, it's considered gold. It's very nutritious. And because it's cold, it has very minimal odor. That's actually what allows you to put it onto your planting beds without it hurting your plants. It's very, very light in that way. And then chicken manure, if you can call it that, is collected in the coop with hay. And then every 3 days, we'll be taking it out, putting it into a dumpster with a lid, and then having it removed on a weekly basis. And I guess I just also wanted to stress for those listening that this is quite a small operation. It's me and 2 other people that help me on a daily basis. In big times of harvest, we may bring in, probably about 2, but in our permit application, it says up to 5 other, people to help us with the harvest. But just in terms of scale, I think it's important to note that it's a pretty small operation. And in terms of, build out, like we're really keeping it in its existing condition for this use. We do not have big plans. We have one very small pole barn that Jerry will, elaborate on. But, to do this, we can do it this summer if given the permit. So we're really not building anything grand. It's just flowers mostly and some produce. And I think I'll now pass it on to my dad, Bill, who's just going to give a bit of history, and then Jerry can run through the rest of the permit application.
Thank you.
Hi there. And yes, thanks again. And good to see you all again. An ounce of history, because Jerry and I chatted earlier today, and he suggested that perhaps people didn't understand why Annie and I and our family got involved with Twin Oaks. So I thought it'd be helpful to put it in perspective, because the goal from the very outset was to do something that was community minded. Twin Oaks as an organization was going under. They owed about $400,000 to a bond, and we agreed to buy Twin Oaks for $2 million in exchange for a promise from the organization that they would take the net proceeds of $1.6 million and pour it back into the property, because the goal was to take this property and contribute it to the school and to the town. I was working very closely with the then town supervisor. And the feeling was that here we had a school district with $138 million budget, and they didn't have a single Hard-True tennis court. $138 million budget, they didn't have a swimming pool. And we're busing the kids to purchase to go for swimming. And most importantly, for the kids who couldn't afford to go away for the summer, who were participating in the town camp, they had no place to even go swimming. So we spent almost 2 years trying to give the property to the school. Somehow or another, they just couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that, it was an offer they shouldn't have refused. We worked with the town. Again, there were just sort of all sorts of insurance issues, and we were left owning this property, which candidly, we had no use for. And you could all figure out what the taxes are and all the other headaches are. And ultimately, Madeline, who comes out of the Cornell School of Hospitality and is very much involved in environmental protection, oysters and the like, offered up the opportunity to try to turn it into what you have in front of you today. So I just wanted to give you the benefit of that background, because this is all very much driven by a desire to do something that has community purpose. In one of our prior meetings, somebody said, I hope, or one of the hearings, I hope you'll somehow try to work with the schools and get the kids involved. And we were careful to say, we're not doing that yet. But I can assure you that if we are successful, part of the ultimate success is that it will be a laboratory and a learning experience and an opportunity for kids to have farming literally right down the block. And I applaud my daughter, who, as you heard at the outset, truly has a mindset about doing things in an environmentally friendly manner. So
I'll jump in, Mr. Wachtel, and say that listen, I think it's a great value to that property if this can be successful. Sitting there being nothing but the old Twin Oaks does nobody any good. I actually used to go to Twin Oaks. It was old then, but I was the one who brought up the issue of I can't legislate or mandate that you do environmental programs and educational programs, but I think it's potentially a great asset on that front that you can allow at some point, once, assuming things move forward, however they may be, somehow interact and allow children to get literally their hands in the dirt and see what it's about.
Okay, well, thank you. We embrace that spirit, and I'll ask Jerry to address whatever open items there are.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jerry Barrett. I'm landscape architect and site planner for the project, and I've been working with the Wachtels and Amy Zabar to develop these plans. And we've been working with town staff and your board and the planning board. And so I just shared a screen. Did that come up? Does everyone see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to just go over the plans and just give you guys the physical layout of how everything is working. And once I go through this, is what we have up is what we call the existing conditions plan. The next plan I'm going to show you is going to be the proposed master plan. And what I hope to demonstrate is that what you see now on this plan, which the existing conditions plan. So this is the 38-acre Twin Oaks site here. Across the street are the Zabar Wachtel properties, their residences. At one point that was part of this. It's no longer. This application is only for 348 Whipple Road. And what we've done is we've taken the property survey that was commissioned and we've just labeled it to what's here now. And I think what's important to note is what's here now is pretty much going to be what is here when the farm is operating. For instance, we have an existing access road that comes in. It's 18 feet wide, which is about the size of a town road. And it comes all the way into a parking area. There was the former cabana area in here. There was the former snack bar / kitchen here. There was the former pool and kiddie pool that was here. These have long since been filled in. This is just now grass. There was a double tennis court area here, and you'll see on the next plan, this is where the chicken pen is. It's already enclosed. It's a perfect setup. And these were the tennis courts in this area here, and these have all been have all been outfitted with planting strips. And this is where the vegetables and the flowers and everything is grown. There's an existing septic system here, and there's a smaller one up here. Michael Campbell is working with the health department right now to procure a septic reuse permit. Michael tells me that the health department has no problem with this because the previous use as a swim club with 16 toilets and 16 showers is much more intense than what is proposed now. And so they see no problem with this, and they're just going through the motions and providing the proper documentation. So we see no problem with that coming through as part of this project. So what we're seeing here, it's sans this pool, it's pretty much, this is still what's here. We go to the master plan. So now we move to the master plan. And again, it's the same driveway that comes in. The utilities that service the property. The town engineer had asked for clarification on that, and we've tried to provide that. Scroll up here. The utilities that come in from the road, your buried water and electric, that's still here, and that's still going to be repurposed. This is the septic system that's going to get the reuse permit from the health department. This was the former pool area here, which now it's just a grass area, and it's going to become a pasture. This parking area is still here. These were the tennis courts that are now repurposed. You can see the planting strips in there where the produce and the flowers are grown. This was a former tennis building, and now it's just kind of a shed for the gardening stuff. There is a small septic system that serves this. There's a bathroom. That's where farm employees can use the bathroom. There is a trailer here for refrigerated storage of produce in this area here. This was the former double tennis court that became the chicken coop. And what we've done is, because you see this red line, this is a 250-foot property line setback line, and that's the animal pen setback that the town has in their code, that if you're going to have animals, you have to offset that 250 feet. So we've done that. So what we've done is we've cordoned off, we will be cordoning off the chicken coop with a fence on the inside. So the chicken coop will remain inside that 250-foot area. The other area for the former tennis court, that we'll just use for storage, parking of vehicles or farm equipment, whatever they need. We talked about a dumpster. There's going to be a dumpster location here. These are the chicken coops. Maddie said the manure is picked up with the hay and every 3 days or so, and put in the dumpster and then carted off site. This is the former cabana we talked about that at one point may be a caretaker's residence, but right now there's no plans for that. This is the snack bar that would be repurposed as a farm kitchen. If that happens, and that would probably be in the future. It's not in the cards for now. We're showing some areas that would be for herb gardens by the kitchen. This was the former pool. This is that pole barn that we were talking about. This is really the only structure being proposed, is this pole barn, and it's not a structure in the sense that you would think that there's no excavation, there's no concrete footings and concrete walls. A pole barn simply has poles that go into the ground, and the barn is grown around it. This picture happens to show a wood floor. This pole barn may have a gravel floor, and I believe the purpose of the pole barn is just to provide shelter for the animals in the cold weather. So it's very limited impact. As I said, no excavation and elaborate concrete footings. There are some propane tanks here. They'll be continued to be used to provide whatever fuel they need if they need it for heating. The beehive area would be in here. And again, even though the beehive, we don't really consider animals, but we did put them inside of that 250-foot setback area. There was some concern noted previously after we spoke with the planning board about the project, they were concerned about runoff. So runoff from the site. So the high point of the site is here. You can see these contours stacked up. We're at 650, 640, 630. So the whole thing drops, and the low point, and everything leaves the site in this area. For the pastures, there's only, I think, 16 animals or 18 animals. And each one of these pastures is over an acre. And every 3 days they get rotated from pasture to pasture to pasture. So what that does, it gives the pastures a chance to recoup or regenerate. when they move them to another one and another one. But one of the concerns was that the cold pelleted manure from the llamas and the goats and the sheep was going to be in this area. And, what if it runs down and gets into the water course and leaves the property? Is that going to be a pollution problem? And we didn't think it was because number one, it's picked up every 3 days. But in order to put belts and suspenders on this, what we've proposed are these core log diversions. We use these all the time. We use them as a filter strip. The core log is a very dense coconut fiber log. You could stand on it. It's very firm. And what happens is you stake these things into the ground. So this would be the fence post. This would be the pasture fence. You'd have a core log on the uphill and downhill side. And what happens is as the runoff, if there's any cold pelleted manure left in the pastures, it'll get trapped behind these things so it can be routinely cleaned up. So it's kind of a belt and suspenders type of approach to this. We did review the town environmental coordinator's memo. We noted he did have a few ideas about, I think he wants this core log out and he wants this one extended, and we're happy to do that. We think that makes sense. But the idea is that it's, we feel that this will, anything left that will wash through will get stopped by these core logs. They're accepted uses. We've used them on many projects in town. And the beauty of the core log is that it takes about 5 years for this thing to decompose. And when it does decompose, it leaves a hump on the ground. And when we put a seed mix over it, the seed mix grows through the core log. So it ends up making this bump where as the stormwater comes down, it has to, drop their sediment load here before it could overflow or infiltrate through. So it's quite an effective means, and it's very simple. And within a few years, it decomposes in place, and you don't even notice them. So I think that what I said earlier is I wanted to point out that while it's a big property, it's 38 acres, and it may look like a big project, it really isn't, because the only difference that you're seeing here is that everything is the same except the addition of these pastures. There's 4 of them, and this pole barn. That is the only change to what's there now. So there's really not much change going on other than the installation of the paddocks and the pole barn. So with that overview, I'd just like to talk for a few minutes to go through some of the town staff memos, if I can, and just hit some high points and our responses to that. I did note in the town planner's memo, when we had a discussion with the planning board with the water quality runoff, of course, again, we have the pastures. The closest point any pasture is to the runoff point is about 600 feet in this area. Everything you see here in this dark green color, this is all forested. This has got forested with understory and leaf litter and ground litter. So it's very soft to walk on it. When you walk on it, when you get that kind of natural leaf litter, what it does is it acts like a sponge. So anything running off through that area is absorbed. And, the plants use it as food. But of course, we're going to limit that because we're putting the core log diversions in. We're going to pick up any of the pelleted manure that perhaps didn't get picked up and might wash off. So anything else that does get by, it has to go through, forested wetlands, forested wooded areas. And so we don't really feel that there is a water quality issue here per se. Particularly, we're only talking about 18 animals that are rotated every 3 days on 1.2 acre average size pastures. So going back to that, the town planner's comment, and we agree that perhaps it does make sense to work with the Cornell Cooperative Extension Office and to arrange yearly inspections to ensure that everything happening at the farm, is functioning the way it has been attended, and Rockledge Farm has no problem with that. They want to do things right too. So with that kind of dovetails into the town environmental coordinator's memo, where he talks a little bit about all this. And he did say at the end, and we agree with him, that a water quality testing protocol for this area, for what we're talking about, does seem it just doesn't seem warranted. And I think between the core logs and working with the Cornell Cooperative Extension, that we agree with the town environmental coordinator that that the water quality protocol, to put that in place, it may not be warranted nor necessary, nor provide any really useful information. We talked a little bit about how Mr. Curley would like us to reposition some of the core logs and make sure we use appropriate seed mixes, and we have no problem with that as well. The town engineer's memo we've reviewed, and while we recognize that the town engineer is always very, very thorough in his review, there are a few things in the memo that Rockledge Farm does not agree with, and some things that we do I agree with. And number one, I think, is the traffic study to demonstrate what's happening on the site. And I've had a long conversation with Bill Wachtel today about this, and I think the feeling is that this may be, should this be necessary, given that we're going from a former Twin Oaks site that had 350 members and many, many cars coming in and out on a daily basis, at least in the summer months when the club was open, and to now a handful of employees that come in and out. Nothing's changing. We have gone out and preliminary looked at sighting distances, and I think the town engineer, rightfully so, he always looks at sighting distances to make sure there's safe sighting coming up and down. No one wants an accident to happen. And what we tried to point out on our plan is that Whipple Road in this area, as you all know, it's a slope. It slopes from the south and it slopes down toward the north, but it's very straight in this area. And it's you can see these contours are spaced out. You see these dark lines. This is every 10 feet of these dark lines. And you can see that they're spaced out evenly. So that means it's an even gradient. It's an even pitch. So when a car is positioned in this area looking up and looking down, or a car is approaching the driveway looking up or looking down, you have a very straight line. We have at least 250 feet of sight distances up and down. The feeling is the club had operated safely for many, many years, and just wondering whether this added research and expense is really necessary given what's happening out here. There are a couple of other things that certainly are perfectly reasonable to request, and we have no problem with addressing. In terms of stationing, providing an existing centerline driveway profile, which means it really would look at the vertical change of what's happening on this road. But I can tell you, and I don't know if the board members have driven down that road, it's very flat. It's paved, it's stable, it's in good shape, and we're not proposing any changes to it. So we will provide that profile. But typically when we provide a profile, we provide an existing profile and then a proposed profile, and here's how it's going to change. In this case, it's not going to change, but we will provide that information nonetheless. We'll certainly station the road for that makes sense. We'll station it so anyone can reference any point of concern, but we're not too on the internal road, asking to provide dynamic stopping sight distances and associated sightline profiles along the access road based on the posted speed limit. Well, what that means is what the town engineer would be looking for, making sure that if a car is driving this way and a car is driving this way, that this guy can see this guy coming and this guy can see this guy coming. We certainly are willing to go in there and perhaps even meet with the town engineer and find some areas where maybe you'd like some thinning of the understory to make sure that the sight lines are open. Typically those types of things happen when you're going around a corner and you can't see what's coming the other way. Here, obviously from here to here, everybody can see who's coming and who's going. So, if we have to come in here and do a little selective clearing, we'd be happy to meet with the town engineer out there and talk about that. But to engage the traffic engineer to go through that when nothing's really changing seems like a burden that perhaps is unnecessary.
I have great respect for our town engineer, and just thinking as you're pointing it out, I've driven that road, or not for years, but a long time ago, but too many times to count. And it was good then, and there was children running around and people driving in and out with regularity. I just wonder why. And again, I'm not questioning him because the town engineer, I think he's fantastic, but I do question that. I do wonder why, if it was good for children and people constantly coming in and out, why that would change with likely less traffic. Although maybe less traffic at any given time, but more regular traffic, what you would have. So I see your point.
Thank you. And again, I think that, if this one blind corner could be a thing, we're certainly willing to work with the town engineer to make sure that there's adequate sight distance. But that, I think Mr. Atkins, Supervisor, that is the position of the Wachtels at this time. He's asking for, we did show where the utilities come in. That's not changing either. There's going to be no change to that, no site disturbance, and of course, providing an engineer's cost estimate for review once everything is ready, so that the performance and maintenance bonding and the inspection fees can be determined. We have no problem with that.
Can I interrupt? Jerry, have you had any conversations with the town engineer about the comments that you're concerned with or don't feel are necessary?
I did speak to the town engineer on other matters related to this project today. We didn't get much into this. Today, we found out we received, for the first time today, we received the fire chief's memorandum that was recommending the improvement of Wildcat Road as a secondary access. And of course, that was very troubling to Rockledge Farm, because it would just, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute, it would just, I think, be a very difficult thing to do and fabulously expensive, and not sure that I don't think that it would be necessary. So we had a long conversation about Wildcat Road today. Wildcat Road, and we're going to get there in a minute, but it's this right of way that is adjacent to, and it goes all the way out. It's cut off here, but it goes all the way out to Whipple Road. And you can see it's of various sizes. Sometimes it's 20 feet, sometimes it's 50 feet, sometimes it's less. And it goes all the way out to Route 128. But Sabrina, you'll remember that early on in this process, when the Wachtels were trying to do something with this project, and one of the things was to turn it into a recreational facility. And we talked about, would it make sense to try to connect? I think at that time, Alfredo Landscape Corporation was interested in working with the applicant to create this recreational area. So we actually had the charge of creating a driveway or roadway that would connect Whipple Road to 128. And it was fraught with all kinds of issues. It's very, very steep. There's wetlands, there's water courses, there's trees in there. It was something that once we considered it, I remember we had a staff meeting at Town Hall, and we laid these plans out, and everyone agreed that it was just way too much disturbance to try to negotiate that very difficult terrain in that area. But I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Scioli and discuss with him that if any of these suggestions that he is noting in his memo, that if we can work with him on that, to not require the applicant to prepare a full-blown traffic study at considerable expense. So the next memo we reviewed, did I answer everyone's question? Should I keep going? Okay, so the next memo we reviewed was the building inspector's memo, and we are in agreement with that memo. Because as I said, that and I also had a conversation with Chief Maitland today. And I do understand his point. His job, rightfully so, is to look at the worst case scenario and what's the best belt and suspenders thing we can have. But maybe it may not be practical, maybe it would. But I think the position of the fire chief is to make sure that he always takes that worst case scenario. But I do understand where he's coming from. However, a couple of things. And I'd like to just while we think we have an 18-foot access here that serves the club well for many, many years. And one of the points that was pointed out in the fire chief's memo was, what if a tree falls over the road and, we can't get in and we have to have our second access? And, it makes me think, and we've worked on subdivisions in town that are on, 2,000-foot cul-de-sacs, dead ends. So what happens there if And there's many of these cases in town where there are long cul-de-sacs, and if there's an emergency and if a tree falls across the road and they're trying to get someplace, they're going to get their chainsaws out, they're going to cut the tree, they're going to push it out of the way, and they're going to go right through. And it would be the same thing here. That's all they would do. But what I looked into this a little bit more because I remember this from, we've done so much work on this project with the various scenarios that the Wachtels and Andy Zabar had considered, all in the attempts of trying to make something work. So here is the Twin Oaks site. The yellow is the access road to come in. Here's that former cabana area. Here's that former kitchen area. So you can see where the Wildcat Road, paper road, I call it, the right of way, it's right here. It's this red line. And you can see it gets very close to the access road right here on the Twin Oaks site. So in theory, you could jump over and then have another secondary access road coming back out. So on paper, I think that makes a lot of sense. However, if you look at this, this is 1,000 feet. This is a water course right here. It goes right down the middle of it. This is the water courses from Twin Oaks. This is another water course that crosses it. The green, this is all wetland. This is state wetland. This is town regulated wetland. This is wetland. So you're working totally within the regulated area. You're going to have to do something with these water courses. You're going to, and this is all unimproved. This is treed, and this is so that would be a very, very expensive and environmental.
Jerry, let me ask you a question. Jump on just a quick question. We're talking about worst case scenario and fires. There are 2 fire hydrants on the property.
That's right.
And they're accessible to what would be the main structures, and if you could just indicate for the public where they are.
Yeah, hold on, I'm going to get them.
Because I think that's helpful information too, to understand the fire protection.
Okay, so, and that was, I was getting to that. I'm sorry I'm being so long-winded, but we were a little bit rattled today, trying to digest all of this. Right here under the letter M, and if you go to my legend on M, it's fire hydrant. You see that symbol there with the circle with the 2 little lines coming out? That's a fire hydrant. It's right there. It's there. This is the existing gravel driveway. It's right there. You could pull a fire truck up to where E is right now and walk up to that thing and hook up your hose. It's right there. So there really doesn't seem to be. There's another one. Here's the other one. You see that other symbol right there by the other M? So there's 2 of them, but this one is, I mean, we're talking about 30 feet away. You can pull right in. So, we see no reason to have to build this road. And I just want to point something out real quick. So you have these wetlands, and then it gets worse. Then you have, this is the floodplain. So now you're going to build the whole thing in the floodplain, and then it gets worse. You got all these steep slopes to deal with. I think it would take 2 years just to get a permit to do it at considerable cost. And then you have to build it. You're talking at least $1 million. It just seems unnecessary. So I'm sorry to harp on it, but it has been, we just found out about this today, and it has been a hot point with Rockledge Farm. So with that.
Jerry, is this coming from the planning board or it's coming from the town engineer?
This was a request
Fire
by the
department.
Fire department.
Fire department. And those road changes you were talking about too, those are from the engineer, right?
Yeah, those.
The traffic.
No, Jerry,
Town engineer.
Jerry,
Yeah,
let's be precise. This is all coming from the fire chief,
Yes.
who in his letter speaks about the additional structures to be built. And the great irony is that the only structures on this property that could catch on fire are B and C, which is nothing but this little kitchen area and the bathhouse. And I candidly wonder what the fire chief was thinking over the past decade when hundreds and hundreds of families and children were there.
Well, listen, I would say, again, as I said before about our engineer, and I know Russell Maitland as well, and I have nothing but respect for him, and I think he's a smart guy, and he has the right goals in mind to make sure there's proper fire safety. So what he says to me has weight. My question as a layperson is there other mechanisms or means to protect the property, protect people, protect the neighboring community, and in seeing the 2 hydrants, and is there any other means that you can put on a property access to water, access to avoid having to spend all that money and all that time to refurbish a road that is probably not the best road to refurbish. And I'm asking that openly. I don't know the answer. And I do, again, I can't stress enough. I think Russell is terrific. So I'm not saying that to question Russell, other than just question it generally.
Sure. And just to add one other thing, though, we don't have plans to really be even in B or C to do this farming operation. Yes, they are existing structures, but in terms of a fire starting, it would have to be a complete freak of nature, something, because we're not going to be in the spaces, like it would have to be completely.
I think you need to understand that we say this with sincerity and we say with respect for everyone. It is virtually impossible to build a second road. It would cost $1 million to $2 million, even assuming you could get it permitted. And we are taking a 38-acre property that had people coming and going, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every day. And this concern wasn't a concern then. Now there are 3 or 4 people there every day. And we will certainly, field any other questions that Mr. Maitland.
Yeah, and I'm sharing this with you, Mr. Rockledge, because without knowing as a layperson, I see your point, and that's why I share it. It seems to be what you're saying is reasonable. I would just like to hear from Russell Maitland, as I said, but it seems reasonable what you're saying.
Okay.
And I'll just add.
I'm only speaking for me. I'm not speaking for everybody, and I need to speak to Russell Maitland. But
yeah.
I will just add on behalf of Mr. Maitland that he did clarify to me that his job is to always look at a worst case scenario and what if there were people here. So that, I think that's his perspective. He's always looking at a worst case scenario. But again, I don't think he was well aware, and I tried to explain to him a little bit. This would be something that would be such a difficult permit to obtain. This is hundreds of feet when there's an alternative available from an environmental permit point of view, which we handle all the day with your planning board. I just don't see the benefit here. Not to mention the cost of Rockledge Farm, which would be prohibitive.
Madeline, one quick question. I know the answer, but just for residents who live nearby, are you anticipating a lot of trucks going in and out of the site?
No. I think the largest thing we would have is a very small Sprinter van for farmers market days. And that's a singular van. So no. Really no. On occasion, maybe once a year, we would get a delivery of compost or soil, for the new planting season. But yeah, very rarely.
Thank you.
And then your dumpster service.
Oh, yes, but that's pretty small, but yes.
Excuse me, this is Tom. I'd like to point out that none of these structures are habitable structures. The life safety element doesn't come into play. So in the event of a fire, the fire personnel are not looking to rush in to save lives. I think that's an important factor here. These are structures on a property, a barn. In the event that there's a fire in the barn, unfortunate, but they're considered chattel and not life safety. The fire department may choose to surround and put out the fire as opposed to going in to save lives. I know that our pets are our family members as well, but there's a reality to this. When and if other structures come online and they are habitable, then adequate fire suppression devices will need to be in those structures if that ever happens. Thank you.
So Tom, you seem to be more supportive of the Wachtel's position that they need not reconstruct Wildcat.
I am in that station. I don't believe a secondary road for the intensity of the property they're proposing is required. This property has been used highly intensified over the years as a swim and tennis club with little or no problems. If
Right.
there is a emergency situation or a fire situation, this will be minimal. And again, the life safety element is what we're really talking about. The fire and emergency personnel will be going to take care of a limited personnel that's on the property. If it's a brush fire, by virtue of the access Rockledge is affording to get into the area, they have a better ability of putting out brush fires. If we should decline this proposal and the road goes defunct, then there is no access to this back property. If this should become something other than what they're proposing, we may never have access back there again. Wildcat Road is not traversable. I've been on the site. It's walking up. We take better care of our town parks. You would never not be able to traverse this easily by walking. You know, I definitely am in favor of what they're proposing because it gives the protection to the surrounding area by giving virtue of access.
Thank you, Tom. That's very helpful. I appreciate that.
Tom, Wildcat Road's private, right?
Wildcat Road
No,
is
it's a town.
right-of-way.
It is?
It's a town right of way.
Okay.
But it really doesn't have the 50-foot right-of-way width that many town roads have, and I think is going to.
It's not a road. That, as you correctly noted, Jerry, it's not a road. It's a right of way for a water main.
We call it Paper Street.
Another fair representation.
I also thought there were some discrepancies as to the ability to build it and also the title in it when we looked at it many years ago. I remember Wildcat Road not being as clear cut as it seemed on paper.
Yes, that's true.
There were some title issues.
Yes,
Okay,
it was never intended to be more than what it is.
right.
All right, Jerry, what else do you want to share with us?
I don't. I think we covered everything. Appreciate the town board's consideration for the project. We're hopeful that, you know, we can, I don't know if the public hearing can be closed, if the board can consider directing staff to prepare a draft resolution for your next meeting. I know the Wachtels are very anxious, and especially Maddie, to get this thing going. And it's been a long road, and as Bill mentioned earlier, so anything that can be done to expedite moving this thing along, we'd be most appreciative.
Again, speaking solely for myself, I'm very supportive of the project and the concept. And it seems, especially hearing from Tom about the road, that it may not be reasonable in terms of a financial and physical geographic reality. Putting that aside, I do want to hear from Russell, because I have total respect for Russell, and he does have a job to do. But going back, as Tom said, there'll be fire prevention measures on the property. It's not life on the property; it's property on the property, if that makes sense. Structures. So, you know, I don't know if the town board has any questions or anything else, but I would like to see this progress.
Me too.
Yes, I agree with you, Jeremy, and I compliment everyone involved on the very detailed due diligence and adaptation that's been applied to this application.
I agree. I'm in favor too.
So Nick and Jill,
I think Sabrina had her.
I think
Yeah,
Sabrina
maybe Sabrina, and maybe also any public comments.
Right, and so this is a public hearing. Was the public hearing on this opened?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so tonight you have before you a resolution for you to declare yourselves as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. I also provided to you what is considered a Part 2 environmental assessment form, which goes through impacts to give you a sense of the environmental impact of the proposed action or the project. I also provided to you a Part 3, which is a draft environmental determination of impact. Tonight, however, it's important that you guys adopt or pass resolution declaring yourselves lead agency, which then will be circulated to the one potentially involved agency, which is what the Westchester County Department of Health. They need to recertify the septic system that was previously used for Twin Oaks for the new use. While it is less than what was previously the previous use on the property, they do need to make sure that it is in operation and appropriate for the use that is being proposed. So, we kind of went back and forth as to whether or not we needed to do a lead agency circulation. We are requesting that you do the lead agency circulation just to cover all bases. It is required that you would circulate your notice of intent for 30 days to the interested and involved parties. And in this case, an involved party may be the fire department, the planning board, entities such as that who've already received notice of this action and information from you. So none of that will be surprising, but we do need to go through the paperwork process to facilitate the project. With that, you do have a draft resolution prepared by council, which sets forth your intention to be lead agency. Town staff, once you adopt that resolution, will prepare the paperwork to circulate the notice. And then the time frame of 30 days must be adhered to before you make a decision on this or make an environmental determination. So Nick, do you need to add anything to that?
No, Sabrina, I think you succinctly described it. No, nothing further to add.
Okay, and then so your next step is to see if there's anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this application. I would advise you to keep the public hearing open because you have to do the lead agency circulation. But at the same time, if you all feel comfortable and based on any public comments, I would also advise you to request that staff prepare a draft special permit for your consideration at your next month's meeting so that you can start to understand what a permit would look like, what type of conditions would be in the permit. And to follow through regarding the applicant's comments, I would also request that the applicant follow through with the town engineer, Jerry, specifically regarding those traffic comments that you think we can massage a little bit, because all of the things that we are talking about tonight, the core logs, the traffic, the pole barn, all of that will be worked into the special permit. And then there will be time limits in there, the Cornell Cooperative Extension involvement. It'll all be incorporated into the special permit. And then there will be a requirement that in 5 years, the Wachtels will come back and renew that permit, approach us with any changes they wish to make, amendments they wish to make, if it, at that time, the education, working with the school district, if that it seems like something that is on the forefront, they'll come back to you to amend the special permit. So that's kind of the short term where we are right now, and then what that special permit will look like and what it calls for.
So I'm all for moving it forward, and however, Nick and Sabrina, you think that's appropriate. I can't stress enough. I think what Bob and Russell say is critical to our decision. That being said, what you're sharing with us as the applicant, in my own experience, at least for whatever it's worth, being there all those years, it seems reasonable. And the last thing we want to do is constantly have impediments to people who want to really enhance the community and make it difficult to do things that are a plus. So I'm on board to move this forward and try to find that massage, if you will, as Sabrina says, and compromise if necessary to make this happen. But I do want to hear from Russell and Bob. So let's just move it forward if everyone's in agreement and have those questions in the interim or conversations.
Don't we need to ask if there's public comment?
Well, we did. I'm just talking about in general. So I like that, the concept of moving this ball forward. So anything else from the town board before we turn it over to the public? Okay, Pam, I see a hand.
Yes, I'm gonna, let's see. Dan Soloway, you may unmute yourself.
Thanks. You all are going to be sick of me by the time my commentary is over. Ms. Wachtel's work is on a world level. And we should be definitely progressing this project. I mean, when you think about things that are happening either in the state of New York or in Westchester County, having been in food for over 2 decades, I would say that the names like Dan Barber would come up in that kind of conversation of people who are having an impact on food and environment. So I'm really glad to hear that, Jeremy, you think things should progress, especially when there's a positive, because I think that this is one of the most positive things I've heard come to town in a very long time, that seems to have some hurdles environmentally and other, which are bigger picture issues, but this could just be fantastic for everyone.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else have anything to share from the public?
I do not see any digital hands raised at this time for this subtopic.
All right, Nick. So next step, Nick. Let's have the resolutions as prepared.
Correct. So 2 next steps would be to direct staff to prepare a resolution that can be workshopped with the board to review conditions of the special permit, adopt the resolution declaring your intent to be lead agency, and then the third thing would be to determine what date to adjourn the public hearing to. You can adjourn a public hearing to a date beyond the workshop because you can workshop a resolution and then hold the public hearing afterwards.
Can we, as I noted, I'm away. We're not having hearings. I think meetings. I think our last date for July was it July 13th? Is that when it is?
13th and 17th.
No,
No,
17th.
13th and 24th.
So maybe we can get this on the 13th. Is that too short of a turnaround?
I can't speak
thought we
for the
had 30
resolution, but
days.
as far as secret, it is less than 30 days, and it would require maybe a call to the Westchester County to see if they would agree to it. And if they haven't by that point in time, you haven't heard from them, then you could just adjourn it again from the 13th.
Let's
Right.
put on for the 13th and see if we can move along.
We can always
Right.
punt it. Okay.
When we send a notice to the county, we can request that, due to vacations and whatnot, that we can request a response by the 13th.
Right. I'm not back till the 25th. I'm gone for about 7 to 10 days. So I don't want to first start it on the 25th. Looking at things. 26th.
And I'm pretty sure we can prepare a draft resolution or a draft permit for review. I think, Jerry, a lot of that's going to depend on conversations that you need to have. But I'm pretty sure we can get a solid draft to you guys by then as well.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Yep.
Thank you for many things, Sabrina.
So then the next step would be to vote to adjourn the hearing to July 13th. Just generally get agreement that the board is in concurrence with directing staff to prepare a draft resolution. And then there is a resolution in the packet to declare your intent to be a lead agency, if you want to do that at this time.
Why don't we do that now so that we can complete this item?
Is all that in writing already, or Nick, or do you want to make that motion and someone could move as such?
Well, so let's do the first motion, which is to that the board is directing town staff to prepare a draft special permit resolution consistent with comments tonight for the board to review at a future workshop session. Period.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next motion is to adjourn the public hearing to the town board's July 13th meeting at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Forgive me for 1 second before you adjourn. I just want to say on behalf of my entire family, while it's been an 8-year endurance test, it would have been an impossible mission without people like Sabrina and the entire team in the town of Newcastle. And again, as frustrating as it's been along the way, our level of appreciation is enormous, and I think we're all lucky to have them. So
I'll second your motion, Mr. Wachtel.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you
So
on
nice to hear.
behalf of everybody that I work with who has helped with this project.
I'm sorry, Nick, and we need a
So
motion
moved.
for lead agency?
Second,
No, we need to vote on the motion to adjourn.
All in favor? We just did that. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
But in the next motion is a motion to, I'm just get up on my screen, a resolution to declare intent to be lead agency under secret in connection with the Rockledge Farm Special Use Permit application. The board has before it the entire resolution that has several whereas clauses. And now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with the requirement of secret, the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby declares its intent to serve as lead agency for the secret coordinated review of the above referenced project, and will circulate a notice of intent to declare lead agency status with all supporting documentation to all involved and interested agencies. And be it further resolved that all involved and interested agencies shall be given 30 days from the mailing of lead agency notice to object to the town board's lead agency designation.
Someone move, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we squared away for now on this, Nick?
And it is correct, yes. Staff
Right.
has marching
Well
orders,
done.
the applicant has some work to do. And we'll see you back on July 13th unless we can get on an earlier workshop to discuss the resolution.
thank you all very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very
Aye.
exciting. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Buck.
Good night, all.
All right.
Good night.
Okay.
Okay, what do we have next? I'm going back to my papers here. We have local law to amend chapter 60. Is that the next on their agenda? Nick?
Yes.
All right, so Nick, you want to share with the town board what this is about?
Nick, you muted.
Nick, you muted.
Okay, well, I won't be after tomorrow after you can't have virtual meetings anymore. So this is I'm just getting it up on my screen. This is a public hearing on proposed local law amending the zoning ordinance. And it's, excuse me, this is your first public hearing. You have previously workshopped it. It's being advertised in accordance with the law. You also sent a copy of the law to the planning board and the planning department, and they provided you with the county planning department with comments that are in your packet indicating it's a matter of local concern and that the town planning board is in support. In essence, it's dealing with Article 60 regarding affordable housing requirements in the BR retail business and the BRP retail business and parking districts in the downtown area. And it's adding the requirement, and consistent with the model ordinance provisions, that any development project for multifamily residential developments of at least 5, but not less than 10 units in those zoning districts have at least one affordable AFFH unit. And for 10 or more units, that would be 10% of the total number of units must be created as a model ordinance affordable AFFH unit. In essence, for the multifamily dwelling projects, you need to have affordable housing of at least 1 unit or 10%. And so this is on for a public hearing tonight, and all the notice requirements have been complied with. All the required notice to the planning department, planning boards have occurred, and it's ready for a motion to open the public hearing for public comment.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Lisa, did you want to start with that? Do you have any comments since this is something that you brought up?
I don't have comments, just a statement that, our current downtown zoning in this area does not require a 10% affordability for housing, and that's why things have been built without necessitating any of those units. So I'm proposing that we include it in our current zoning in the Chappaqua Hamlet to require that, as Nick stated.
So I have, well, let me, Lori or Lauren, do you have anything you want to share or ask?
Yeah, sure. I'm fully supportive of our incenting the addition of affordable units in Newcastle. I am concerned, however, about the unintended consequences of this particular change. because it's my understanding that these two particular zoning types have a first floor commercial requirement, and that applying the affordable requirement on top of that will have a net effect of being a disincentive to new proposals in these two zoning types, and ultimately decrease the likelihood of addition of housing in the hamlet, or at least in properties that have this particular zoning.
Well, I would say a building permit or design was just granted where the Lux building is now for, I believe, 6 units, none of which are affordable now because it was not required. Had we had this requirement, at least one of those would have been affordable. Same thing up at the top of the hill. So I disagree, and we're certainly still doesn't mean we can't continue to look at zoning and ways that it should be changed, but at least it's something that can be changed now expeditiously. And as we continue to look at zoning and what makes sense in the hamlet, we can always adjust.
So I guess that's my question, right? The pursuit of those two new projects is without this affordable requirement, but with the commercial requirement. And I think the open question is whether those projects would have gone forward, or any new projects would go forward with this requirement in place.
I think
Building owners told me they would, that had it been required, they would have put it in.
I think that's a fair question, and I think what should be tied to this is an incentive to allow building owners to do more. So, I ask, for example, Sabrina, how many building applications have you seen in the hamlet to go up and expand to that level if you can recall, in the past 5 years or so?
There's virtually none. We have been under moratorium, but we haven't had a lot of inquiry from, potential property owners. 91 Bedford was a rare case. There was a fire on the property, which, ruined the existing building. So that project was unique. We had many conversations with certain developers, 91 Bedford being one of them, and really talking about some of the economics of the affordable units. And, one unit maybe not so bad, but when you start employing 10% of anything above 9 units or 10 units, it becomes not worth it, particularly with the first floor commercial requirement. And so there's a lot of pushback in the development community if they can't get the density on the property. I can tell you there's a history of in the town of the affordability requirement. We have our workforce overlays that allow the affordability requirement. We have the office park retail overlay district. We added a residential component there with an affordability requirement. Historically, the BR and BRP zoning districts, because of that first floor commercial and the limitations on the 2 and 3 floors at 35 feet height, it was seen that those requirements were restrictive to really making a large contribution to affordability. The discussions around the form-based code are to really try and create housing diversity, which would beget differing incomes. There was discussion and we added it into the form-based code.
Rena, this isn't the form-based code. No,
I'm giving you the history. I think, Lisa, that you are completely correct in that there are zoning changes that can be made in the hamlet, right? There's been a lot of discussion in the community as to whether or not, the form-based code is right, but there are other zoning changes that can be made. The onus is on the town board to look at that and, to determine, is now the right time to make this change.
Do you have any current applications now to build to this level? So, for example, next to Villarinas that went up a floor or a story, if I recall. First of all, how many units were built there?
That was about 6 or 7 units, and that was already residential. They had a planning board approval which restricted how many units could be built above that space. That project was renovated and additional apartments were incorporated, but they went before the planning board several years ago to do that. But they were limited as to how many units they could put in that space.
And the bank building, do you know what's going on with that? Have you heard anything?
Well, we have not heard anything. There has been a lot of talk on the street about new owners, but they have yet to come in for any type of permitting.
Well, we've also had a moratorium in place that was only lifted very recently also for the whole downtown.
Well, so the question becomes, I just think this should be also associated with something that incentivizes, because if I haven't heard from the owners of those buildings as you have. I'm not doubting what you say, but how would that impact their decision? Because we want them to have affordability. We want them to have workforce. We want them to add more diversity to the housing. And if you have to have commercial on the bottom and there's only so much you can go up, it's too cost prohibitive. Are they going to do that at those margins? And it's not my position to say, that's enough for them or not. That's not in that area. I just want to do something that really will work, as opposed to just look like it'll work. Even if it's our intention 100%, I don't think anyone's pitching this and pushing for it because they think it's not going to have value. I think we all agree that that's the end game. I just question whether it will, and if there should be something with it tied to it to also enhance that likelihood that it will happen.
Well, I think that's something that as a project comes in, they can work with the planning board to determine if it makes sense, depending on what they want to build there, what makes sense. If they need that incentive, if they only want to put, if they want to put residential on the first floor, there are different options that we can determine what makes most sense with the property. I don't know that you need to necessarily legislate that right now, but I would advocate any chance we can get to get additional affordable housing. I would be in favor of that.
Yeah, I think, listen, I think we're probably both lived here roughly the same time, maybe more than I have, but since 2006, I don't recall off the top of my head, and I could be missing things, that much development in the hamlet building up. There's been some. So if it hasn't happened to date without that requirement, what's the likelihood to happen with that requirement that makes it that less profitable and less of an incentive?
You're more than welcome to not want it. That's okay. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But if you're not in favor of it, that's good. That's fine with me.
It's not fine with anyone. I'm trying to do and look at it and analyze it to see how we can actually make it work and make it worthwhile and incentivize, as opposed to just saying,
So
hey, we're going to now we're going to require this additional component, which we all want as an end game. But at the same time, if we see historically there hasn't been any development, now detracting from value in terms of that affordability unit, well, is that going to dissuade people even further to invest in the community? So we want to find a way to combine it, make it a worthwhile investment, and increase
seeing those buildings go up without affordability, without any affordable apartments when they would have. So that really troubled me that those went up and we could have had it in there and we didn't.
Yeah,
I know there are people. I see Bill Spade on there. He's in favor of affordable housing, I believe, and anything we can do. So, that is my proposal. I think we should open it up to public comment and see what people think as well.
Absolutely. I mean, let's make no mistake. We're going to do that. So, does anyone else on the town board have any comments right now?
Just a quick question for Sabrina. What do you think? First of all, how would we work out this question of is the change obstructive to an investment or to the addition of units? Like how do you get an answer to that? And then are there incentives that we should consider in addition to the affordable requirement that might help alleviate that obstruction?
So, I hate to throw this word out there, but
form-based code.
I'm not going to, but you're in the midst of preparing an FGEIS. And this was one of the issues that was commented on that will be addressed in the FGEIS. And that analysis of what the cost of an affordable unit was part of the public comment process.
Right.
And the consultant is supposed to respond to that. They're working on responses right now. That will help inform this decision, unless you want to make it without that information.
But if as members of this town board have claimed that the form-based code is only going to be applied to one street, then it's leaving the entire remainder of the hamlet without any affordability requirement.
No, but I'll jump in and say before, I'm sorry, so that's not necessarily true, because the analysis is going to be the analysis, right? So that analysis could be applied in other ways in other places. So understanding what that means doesn't mean it has to be on North Greeley. It's the same thing whether it's on, across from Town Hall. So it's a relevant question no matter where in the hamlet it is.
That's a great point. I think that that's one of the things that I have thought creates value with the FGEIS is analysis that can help inform changes to the hamlet, regardless of the zoning tool that is under consideration.
I agree with that. That's why we don't need the form-based code, because the environmental review will already have been done, which makes it much easier for developers to implement development.
That's great. I'm glad you're excited about the environmental review of the whole hamlet.
I've been talking about it for months.
All right. So
the only thing I have to add is that I'm curious to hear what Bill Spade has to say, but ultimately, back to Sabrina's point about two things. One, there's nothing urgent that is on the table as it relates to, anything being built anytime soon. Whether it's, there haven't been any permits issued to build more housing in down or et cetera, right, Sabrina? So if we
There are not.
Okay.
There haven't been, and there is also a process that involves the planning board if
Right.
there's a change of use, and the planning board addresses this frequently, and so it's not as if we're missing opportunity, I feel.
So we're like week 4 of June. We're expected to receive the analysis from the consultants by mid-July. Again, I think that is critical information to have so that we can actually make a very well-educated and informed decision.
I think that's fair. And before Bill Spade jumps in, I think certainly if it turns out that it plays out the way that Lisa thinks it might, then certainly that'll change our calculus, or should. But let's bring in Bill Spade if we can, Pam.
Sure. You're opening to the public.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Bill, please unmute yourself.
I unmuted myself.
We can hear you.
Can you actually see my face, or that's not critical?
Not yet.
Do I need to do something to do that?
No, you're not a participant. You're just an attendee.
Okay. All right. I'm a disengaged head. So thank you. I was hoping hopefully there's other people to comment too, because certainly it's a very important topic. We do have some specific experience, I think, as almost all of you know, with regard to all of these. Lisa, thank you. Yes, we absolutely would love to do everything we can to create more affordable housing. It's just the top line item for us in terms of this community, and of course it's from the basis of believing that our community will be better and stronger the more diverse we get, and the people who can't live here right now, who we didn't able to live here, will make us a better community. So I'm excited for that future. With regard to the specific proposal, I do believe that without creating more incentives to enable development, that just adding this affordable requirement to the existing mix will be a further disincentive to any development. I've come to this knowing that we've lived here 30 years. I believe I'm right to say there are only 2 new buildings in the downtown district over the last 30 years. Our building at 91 Bedford and the one downtown that I think Houlihan Lawrence is in. And there's a reason that nothing new has been developed in this community over that 30 years, And it's primarily, to me, due to the first floor commercial requirement layered with the limited building heights. Half of the downtown is only 2-story limit. So if you have a property in a 2-story zone and the first floor has to be commercial, no surprise that nobody does anything. And the other half, that's 3-story zoning, the potential is there. But if, and again, I'm maybe correct, I would say 80% of the downtown lots in the 3-story zone are very small lots. So the potential to do anything is likely to be in the, under 10 unit number, likely to be in a low, mid single digit number in terms of numbers of units. So to have a commercial first floor requirement and the limited parking in a small lot, and to add affordable housing requirement to that, I think will just continue to be a disincentive and you won't see anything happen. So I agree with the notion that you have to relieve the first floor commercial requirement if you want to incentivize development, particularly of the smaller properties. The larger lots, the Rite Aid, Susan Lawrence property, the large lots along North Greeley, they're large enough that they can deal with the affordable requirement and some level the commercial first floor requirement, and still, pencil out a reasonable development. The smaller lots, if you're talking about 5 or 6 units and you have to add an affordable to that, that's 20% of the units having to be affordable. That's, again, I believe it's nothing will happen. 91 Bedford, I believe that owner would say he wouldn't have developed had he been required to do affordable housing, because again, he had to do the commercial requirement. So, those numbers just don't work out well when you add all those requirements to it. And on top of that, I would add the parking requirement. 91 Bedford, we're substantially overparked there in terms of the requirement in the zoning. And so again, that's a cost that property owner developer had to incur in order to just do something. So I would advocate highly that if for adding the affordable requirements, need to also relieve on these other requirements so that you are sure that you can encourage development to occur. Certainly talk to those property owners and find out what their perspectives are in terms of what would they look at in doing a development program. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm done. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, for those who don't know, you were on the Form-Based Code, working group. You've been involved, but I also know that you've been involved in affordable housing and developing and pushing for affordable housing. So I just think it's reasonable and fair. Just if you can briefly share your experience in building and dealing with affordable housing. Wow, that the one we're doing right now is the what was Habitat for Humanity, now Fuller Center of Greater New York, converting the that former nursery school building to 2 affordable units. I have worked on other properties, that have created affordable housing, did senior affordable housing. You need to make the numbers work. You really need a larger number of units, and so I'm not sure I understand how even if you're talking about an 8-unit development where you would require 1 affordable housing unit, how that would even pencil out, as they say, for creating the ability to finance it. As you know, Conifer, it's a when you have the single purpose affordable housing buildings, there's a whole other stream of financing that's available to do that.
When you're trying to mix in affordable housing with market rate, which is the best way to do it, then it's really the private financing that has to, make sense to be able to cover the lower income from those units that you're going to build at the same cost as the market rate unit. I'd also add, I certainly believe that for sale affordable housing is the best way to create affordable housing. Unfortunately, in the present market where most affordable housing is created as rental, it's not providing those residents with the opportunity to create equity. And we all know that our country's biggest challenge in terms of the lack of racial equity in our country is the fact that minority communities have been locked out of the ability to create equity over generations. And so the concept that we presently have of creating affordable housing as rental housing, in some sense, continues that, whatever, I can't think of the right word there, continues those policies that are not enabling minority communities to gain that equity. The nice thing about the Habitat/Fuller Center project is those will be two units that'll be for sale. And so those buyers will have the opportunity to create equity over time. Jeremy, is that anything else that I might have missed that you'd love me to?
No, perfect. I just wanted to make it clear that, and people should know, for fairness, not that you're doing anything improper, that you were involved in the process, the form-based code, and they should also know you were involved in the process to help build affordable housing.
Right.
It's your experience.
I absolutely, as you all know, am a big supporter of the form-based code, but it's these specific pieces of it that I think are the key. It's the relieving the commercial requirement. It's the relieving the parking, requirements and reducing the parking requirement, and including adding the story height to be sure that we get the opportunity to provide as many incentives as we can for property owners and those builders to create these units. And again,
we don't have to. Yeah, I mean, I don't know for a second. We don't have to bring this up into a form-based code conversation.
Yes, please.
Because there's no reason to do it at this point. There's a lot of things to consider. What we consider, what we change, what we do, ultimately, that's yet to be seen. But my point being that you have experience. Also in affordable housing solely on an island.
And again, keep in mind, half of the downtown is only 2-story zoning. So the existing.
But that can be changed.
Exactly. Please, yes, that's exactly correct, and that's a big thing to look at.
See, what concerns me about this, though, is that we're really then only playing to developers and not maybe what's in the best interest of our town. And I agree that we need to provide incentives, and I think we can. In fact, I'm pretty sure, Sabrina, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't like the old Chappaqua taxi building, like on North Greeley, didn't we just make that first floor residential? I'm pretty sure that requirement was lifted there. Pretty positive.
Just to add,
right?
I don't know.
So I feel like there are things we can definitely do to incentivize, but I'm feeling like it should be on a case-by-case basis. I would actually hate to see every building not require first floor commercial, because then you've lost all your merchants and you've just turned it into a giant, apartment building complex, which nobody wants either for the downtown Chappaqua Hamlet. So I think that's why I'm thinking we put it in, but it's got to be on a case-by-case basis so that it can make sense both for the community, but also for our individual developers. We can't just play to the developers.
We'll just say when just because we're going to go in circles here, there is consideration to mandate in certain places commercial. Number one, number two, I don't think that
we're not talking about the form-based code now. We're just talking about
so I think that instead of looking at this on an island, meaning the 10%. I think what we should do, and I hope everyone agrees, is let's get the consultants to give us some answers that we need to figure out if that can work or it can't work and why. So I think we should wait for that. 1 month is not going to change anything and change, especially in light of the fact that there's nothing before Sabrina now anyway. So I think it's a reasonable request that you're making to look into it, but I also think it's just as reasonable to say, let's look, let's see, let's wait for some answers.
I'm always for research.
All right, so
Bill Spade has his hand raised again.
all right, so Bill, just to briefly, if you want to finish up, that's not a problem.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to add, Lisa mentioned the idea of, on it maybe a case-by-case basis, relieving the first floor commercial requirement. From my knowledge, and Nicholas may know this better, if the zoning does not permit a use, you cannot add that use. You would have to go to the zoning board, and in New York State, getting use variances is very difficult. So I don't know a way without changing the zoning that you could enable any of the commercial or the BR district or BRP district lots that have that commercial requirement today. They could not do, as far as I know, like commercial use. Nicholas, am I correct about that?
You're correct. If the use is not permitted in the zoning district, they would be required to get a use variance, which is extremely difficult to obtain.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if what you're talking about, a specific use, is or is not allowed in the district.
Well, residential. So residential is not permitted on the first floor, and for any particular property owner to request that, and that's been I
wonder how it just got changed then on North Greeley. I have to look into that.
Well, I also don't know if that's interesting. If that's an area variance or a use variance, because the use is allowed in the building. It's in the area. It's not allowed on the first floor.
Right.
Yeah.
That must be
Yeah.
it.
So if they're talking about first floor residential, as far as I know, your code doesn't allow it, and you can't get it unless the zoning board
Grants
grants
a variance.
And what you have to do, just to add it, to get that approved, you have to prove that every permitted other use is economically infeasible.
Unless it's an
I
area
know,
variance.
that's what you guys are trying to do now in 91 Bedford, right?
What's that?
For the retail.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, at the moment, the retail is clearly a challenge, and the owner there would love it if the residential was permitted. And of course, we have had this conversation with him, and he understands that you can't just go to the zoning board and ask to do residential, and the town can't allow it. You have to prove it. So
I know some people, Bill, who would love to come in there, so I should put them in touch with you. I don't know. I feel like they may have been turned away, so I should bring those. Make sure they get in touch with the developer.
Lisa, please. Yes. Thank you.
You can figure that out.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll put them in
Bill.
touch.
All right, let's try to wrap this up. Dan, we have Dan Soloway.
Yes, Dan, please unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. I just wanted to say that I have spoken to the owner of 91 Bedford, and I was rejected as a potential tenant with no more conversation. So it's extremely disheartening to hear that he's having such a hard time that he came to the town for a change that obviously it seems cannot legally be granted. But that's the kind of thing that infuriates people like me. We're trying to open businesses in town, and this is the shenanigans on the backside. I have said it from the beginning. I am all for change in this town. We need positive change, and we need to go in a direction. But I do have a problem with hearing how we need to incentivize property owners. By the way, I am one myself, of not only my house in the hamlet, but of property as an investment, and it's my wife's business. So we know full well how this goes. But I can't listen to anybody tell me all the problems that all the property owners have, but then they reject honest people in town looking to run a business and then backdoor it and try to get things changed even though they can't. That to me is an abomination.
Dan, I appreciate your frustration. I can't speak as to a particular property owner. And I can't speak as to whether you were one person, but no one else wanted anything. And therefore putting one person in would have been a financially make everything okay and make them earn the money that he needed to keep that building running. So I can appreciate your frustration. But to sit and just demonize, all the property owners, I'm sure there are some who don't want to. I'm sure there's some who would love to. I don't know most of them. The overwhelming majority of them I don't know. So instead of just attacking the property owners, it's not that. It's not that. It's not.
He has a legitimate point. I mean.
Okay, so let's not get your point.
Jeremy,
I get your point. So
Can you
let's. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, Dan.
okay, this one owner, that's specific, but
Okay.
I will, but because I've emailed with you and then Ivy also, I've gone through about 35 to 40 different property owners who have either rejected me, there's an ADA compliance, there's a fire code issue, all
Again,
kinds
so
of things.
I'm not. Listen,
So-
I'm not privy
So
to
while I understand
35.
where you're coming from, I can get specific just here. I can drop the word property owners and say this property owner. All I'm saying is that when you have somebody like that, if you want to defend them, that's your call. I'm saying here, I have a different standard of ethics.
Okay.
This one person. On this,
Dan, I'm not going to allow you to sit somebody who's not here and challenge someone's ethics. I appreciate your concern. That's one unit among many. I appreciate your frustration, but if you have nothing else to say, I'm going to ask you to finish up because this is not a forum for us to attack someone personally who's not here.
I'm not. It's not a personal. I could be speaking more to the board. What I'm saying is, in general, I feel like that's a problem. Specifically in this case, I'm sorry that they're not here. If Bill would like to respond on their behalf because he worked on the project, I'm happy to have him respond.
Listen, Bill's not here. Or Bill is. I guess I saw him. I thought he left. I don't think Bill needs to. This doesn't need to be that kind of debate. I see Bill has his hand up,
Okay.
but frankly, this is not a debate about what one property owner did for one unit. This is not what this is about. So that being said,
What I'm pointing out is that you have to look at things holistically. You have to look at all the stakeholders. And I understand your point, and it's a point well taken. And I'll like bring it down a few notches. I think that when we're not looking at all of the stakeholders in the conversation, and it does seem like it's very one-sided and kind of looked at on an island. I do want development in this town, but I also want people who want to develop in the town to want to enhance town, not just themselves, all the stakeholders. That's the businesses that exist. That's you on the town board who has to market town, right? Because you're competing against Armonk and Pleasantville.
Dan, I'm going to just jump in for a second. We were talking, this has really gone off the rails, I think, and I'm not, that came off wrong. This has really digressed into something that went from a 10% affordability requirement. I understand your issues. You shared them with me. I'm not disputing your personal experience. I don't know one way or another. So if there's nothing about the 10% issue, my suggestion is we're going to continue these conversations for months to come. So my suggestion is that you continue to share, we will continue to listen, and I think the town board is in agreement, and I believe Lisa as well, at least for now. Let's see what we get back from the GEIS in July, and then we'll continue with this process.
That's fair.
So I appreciate it, Dan. I do. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm heated.
That's all right, Dan. It's all right. We all get it. We're all guilty of it sometimes, including myself. Thank you, Dan. All right, so if there's no other more comment on this particular issue from the town board, then Nick, should we just adjourn this? Maybe we should adjourn this to after we get the GEIS back.
So maybe July 24th or August.
Right. I'm sorry, the responses. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
So either July 24th or your August meeting.
I would recommend August.
Yeah.
I'm back to the 25th.
Sorry, there's another person raising their hand and the public comment is still open.
So if you can bring in Ms. Tip, please.
Sure. Victoria Tip, please unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. I didn't expect to speak today at all. And so I guess I just expected to see a 10% affordable housing get built in. So look, this is personal. So as a member of the BIPOC community, I want to see diversity in housing options. And I'd like to know what your commitment is to this. I've seen the town board stress this goal in connection with the form-based code. So I am actually very shocked. I've seen people use the need for diversity and affordable housing to push back against any questioning of the form-based code. And now you've had the opportunity to actually move the needle. And I'm hearing it's a disincentive to developers.
So I'm
So
happy.
please don't interrupt me, Jeremy. Let me finish my comment. I'll be happy to, have a back and forth. But if you pass the form-based code and developers come back at you to negotiate, what will your commitment be? And what's our assurance that we won't end up with a glut of luxury apartments? So you can't say you believe in something and then say you won't do it. Where's the integrity? I have to tell you, it's easy to be performative, but it's really hard to do the real work. And I would ask that you never again appropriate the pain of racial inequity that is not your own and then fail to deliver. So what are your values and beliefs? How do they guide your actions? Because I am honestly shocked with the conversation I've just heard.
Is it my turn to respond, Ms. Tipp? I don't want to interrupt anymore. I apologize. Are you finished?
I am. Thanks.
Okay. So I take offense by you throwing out some charged words at me in terms of I'm taking someone else's pain. But I'm glad you asked the question about actions, because if you recall, at Chapel Crossing, Ms. Tipp, there was 91 units there that are being built. And there came a point in time that all of them were going to get basements, and 9 of them were going to be converted from 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. And the school was not involved. And I reached out to the school to get the information about more students. And this was a December 2019 meeting. I want to say the 13th maybe, and I'm happy to share it with you. And anyway, during that meeting, it was stated that, listen, if they're going to pay fee simple, we're dedicated to educating the students. And I had raised issues about how many students would ultimately live in those units, because once you throw in basements, for example, I was a young guy once, I would have loved to live in a basement. How many more students were going to come? And your response was, we could always redistrict. We've done it before, was your response, actually. And I'm happy to get the quote. So when we do things and we act with our words, and pardon me, we don't just use words, we actually act and do things. So you were in a position then to make that comment, and someone who's deeply involved with the Board of Education. Then when the form-based code came around, after you had initially said, and I hope inadvertently, about the 5-story buildings, the length of King Street up to up to 117, which was never, ever going to be that situation. You said in your meeting in maybe January of 2020 or January 2020 or 21, I apologize, roughly a year later, you said when it was raised, you said we could not redistrict. We could not redistrict. I asked your counsel who was here, I've asked you through email, I said, well, can you explain please what legal impediment or policy change that if you paid fee simple in taxes, you could then redistrict. But if it was going to be rentals, which is perceived as a lesser tax and lower income, you said you could not redistrict. And then I'm just curious, Ms. Tipp, why you have not responded. I've certainly asked your counsel. I asked it publicly here in another public forum on one of these recordings. I sent an email, at least one. So I'm just concerned. I don't like the words that you use that certainly charge people. But to come here and assert, and even Lisa agreed, unless she changed her mind now, let's get the GEIS back. Nobody here is saying, Ms. Tipp, that we don't want affordable housing. So please don't misconstrue, intentionally so, for some political gain. And I appreciate you being here. But let's be very, very, very clear. We want more affordable units. And affordable units don't always mean someone in the BIPOC community. It may or may not. So, we shouldn't just conflate less expensive with BIPOC. That's not reasonable or fair. But we want more cultural, ethnic, racial, socioeconomic, financial diversity across the board. Make no mistake, workforce housing, affordable housing. But we also have to be smart in the way we do it. And we can agree to disagree. We can debate this. I don't think this is the forum to debate our opinions on the form-based code. But to say to me and say to this board and to say to Lisa too, that that, hey, you shouldn't wait to hear and see what our consultants have to say, disingenuous at best. Disingenuous at best. So I appreciate your comments. I just, I'm upset that you would make those statements to me, knowing that you were in a position of power and authority in the Board of Education to say that you, Ms. Tipp, we have done it before as a community, as a school district, have redistricted. We've redistricted when it was be simple, but we can't now, and no policy answer and no legal answer. So that being said, I appreciate your comment, and I look
Well,
forward to
may I respond, since you brought up a different issue? I do not believe we ever said that we cannot redistrict.
I'll get the
So
report
I
later.
must say, this was the most meandering journey with a line of reasoning that I have frankly, that you frankly have lost me in your line of reasoning and your multiple threads. So I thought we were simply discussing a 10% affordable housing option here. And I know, Jeremy, you've gone off into many tangents, which is your prerogative here. And I really have nothing to do with that. My comment had to do with the issue at hand, but except to correct your point that we said we can't redistrict. Of course we can redistrict. I don't know where you got the information, but that is a tangent. That is not the issue at hand. So I am simply commenting on what is on your agenda today.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, but
I
will-
appreciate your time, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
I made my comment, and I will leave your meeting. Thank you so much, everyone.
Before you leave, I want you to hear what I have to say. Oh, Ms. Tipp, before you leave, I'll get the recording again because I have it where you made that statement. So make no mistake, it was made that you couldn't redistrict. So that's number one. Number two, this isn't meandering. We absolutely want to have the 10% or more, and we want to understand the research and the information from the consultants to make sure it's done in a way that actually works and it's not superficial. So meandering, if you will, I'm happy to continue this conversation. And if you're going to make allegations or threats that we're just doing things performatively and being fictitious in our actions, I just share back with you, you were in that opportunity to actually make a change and you made those statements. So thank you, Ms. Tipp. All right. Anything else from anyone in the public care to share? Otherwise, we should adjourn this for that date that you suggested, Nick.
No one else has their hand raised at this time.
So Joe, what
Okay,
date in August?
I believe it was August 10th. Christina, am I right on that? Sorry, I was there and I lost the date. Give me 1 second.
August 10th is the second Tuesday.
Right, I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's make the.
Sorry, I tried on my calendar.
It is the second Tuesday. I just checked it.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Nope. Yep. Right. I'm adjourning to the date.
August 10th.
10th.
Right.
Yep. So we need a first and a second and a vote.
Motion to adjourn to August 10th.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So what is our last, do we have one more, I believe?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Sabrina, can we turn it over to you? To bring it home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Should we open that? Should Jeremy make a motion to open the public hearing first?
Yes.
Sure.
Anyone have a motion from anyone?
For which one?
Westchester County Community Development Block Grant Application Fiscal Year 2022, 2024.
Thank you. I move to open public hearing on this topic.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, go ahead.
So,
Sabrina.
so this public hearing, so being a member of the Westchester County Consortium, the town of Newcastle is eligible to submit applications that fall into certain national objectives regarding low and moderate income persons, persons with severe disabilities, visual impairments, different segments of the population. We can submit applications on a whole host of array of projects. So this public hearing is intended to let anybody that is out in the community kind of voice their vote for projects that they would like to see the town embrace and submit application for. So that's what the public hearing is for tonight. Lucille Rossi, who was on the call earlier, she had to go. She is Newcastle's community development representative on the consortium of public participants. She represents us, and she is in full support of the town moving forward with an application to restore, or not restore, but to renovate the restroom facilities in town hall, including the elevator, to meet today's ADA requirements. But that is not the only project that we can submit. So this is a public hearing to ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak and promote a project. I don't see anybody.
I'd like
No one has their hand raised.
for ADA compliance at Chapac. That could be a nice chunk of money.
That's
So-
something we're working on. That'd be great.
So that is a great project to include. However, one of the difficulties that we have, and our projects have to be oriented towards what is consistent with a national objective of limited clientele. So at the moment, given we have just gone through the pandemic, it's difficult to survey the population that goes into the Chapac. Given the site where we are with, kind of that is a limited use facility at this moment. I think looking to the future, when we are up and running with regular programming, we can start to survey people who come into that building to gear ourselves up for the next round of funding after 2024. At the moment, the town of Newcastle is surveying anybody who comes to the town property, the playground, the basketball courts, comes into town hall for any reason. There is a survey that the community development block grant that the county had included as part of the manual for the community development block grant monies, which capture characteristics that will enable us to meet the eligibility, the income eligibility requirement to utilize CDBG block grant funding. It is right now, if we were to go on what's considered an area-wide basis, which would look at property values in the town of Newcastle, we would not be eligible for community development block grant funding. It is only through the surveying process that we are undertaking right now and will be running from June of 2021 through spring of 2022, with the hopes that we will identify with a 51% low and moderate income clientele to enable us to receive the community development block grant funds. Okay, and so we selected the project at town hall due to the amount of people that come into the town hall itself and come onto the property. You do not need to be a resident to come into the Newcastle Town Hall. The preferred project is the renovation of the bathrooms on the second floor. Due to logistical issues and space issues of those facilities, if you are severely disabled or visually impaired. And the family restroom on the first floor is missing some key elements of ADA assistance that would make that facility more appropriate to assist those with severe disabilities and visual impairments. The town has a lot of work to do for this project. Right now, it is a concept. We are surveying to try and verify the limited clientele benefit. We've had to pull together a lot of information in an application. The county has encouraged us to submit this application. We are submitting it for a 2023 funding, so not 2022, but 2023, so we can get our surveying in and kind of meet that requirement. Also, we are required to provide a 50% match to this grant. The grant total right now is $356,250, which would be a cost share for the town of $178,125. That cost share cannot be matched with federal monies. It has to be matched with other monies. With a 2023 project, it will enable us to find additional monies if we can to help support the project. This is kind of where we are right now. The cycle was short in the sense of trying to get our paperwork in. If we do not submit an application by this Friday, we will not be eligible for this round of funding. It is a missed opportunity. So I'm working very hard and having this public hearing tonight, asking the public if there's anyone who wishes to speak and propose a project is a critical step in meeting the requirements of the grant application. So I'm going to leave that with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think that we can definitively submit additional projects in the coming years, but at this moment, this was the easiest project for us to try and document in order to be eligible to receive the monies.
Thanks, Sabrina. Just a question about this point of access. So that 51% is like all individuals who access the building at any time.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Just again, thinking about
the town hall property, because many times people go to the accessible playground, they go to the basketball court, they come into the town hall to use the facilities.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, just was thinking about whether, there were creative things we could think about in terms of programming at the PAC to help inspire utilization that might, drive some qualifying for these kinds of grants, but certainly
our issue with the
Senior
PAC is that.
programming. Sorry, Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right about the senior program.
Yeah, we
I
have
was just
senior
thinking about
programming that's going on, working with the library, and so we're on it.
Right, but part of our problem is that because the front of the building itself is not ADA accessible, it means that the people that would normally try to use the building can't get in the building. So it's like a chicken and egg.
Well, I mean, it's ADA accessible. It's just not great. It could be much better.
Those steps are very
much better. Or not the steps.
I think
the steps.
we go through this process this time, we will be in better shape to understand what we need to do to document for the future. So, kind of put that in the back of the hat as we look to programming and to understanding the populations that are now coming into the chat pack.
May I throw out an idea, Sabrina? The community center by the way, the new roof looks amazing. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I remember about 2 years ago walking through just the lower level of the community center, just needing upgrades. Even that bathroom downstairs is pretty disgusting, candidly. And we have a fair bit of programming there for our seniors. I believe there's an ice cream social there this week. And so is there any openness to that? Just because, I mean, like just simple paint, water damage issues, like on the roof, on the ceiling, I've noticed, not the roof, the ceiling on the lower level, baseboard.
Is that recent, Lauren?
Yeah, because I was there when I was setting up Supper on Center, and I just was trying to find like the vases. Unfortunately, the vases didn't end up on the tables, but I gave out the flowers anyway. But the point is that I don't know if that's at all something that would be a viable option, Sabrina.
Yeah, it would definitely be a viable option.
In addition to or apart from?
We can submit more than one application. The difficulty at this point is meeting the deadline.
And the survey. But so can we put this in the hopper in the queue for next year, Sabrina? And
I can speak with the county representative and see if we can put this as another project.
Okay.
Particularly because the first floor is the senior center.
Yeah.
It's kind of a designated population there. So let me have some conversations. If that is a project that the town board is interested in supporting, then we would need to add it to the resolution and then kind of put a dollar amount in there.
But you said the deadline's what, Friday?
Friday.
Yeah, actually, I'm trying to get the application in tomorrow, but again.
Word in the hand. I mean, listen, relatively speaking, if we have something that we've identified, it has value, let's get it done. Let's not lose it to make it perfect for everything.
Right. Well, again, I have the flexibility right now because they're interested in the town acquiring some of the money that the federal government has for this purpose. I have no problem submitting another project, right? I mean, bathrooms seem to be the key word here. And it is, I can try and get all hands on deck to do that. Tonight, though, you'll have to leave a space in your resolution for the dollar amount of that project and the match of that project.
Can we just do up to a certain amount, Nick? Or not to exceed a certain amount, or it doesn't work that way?
So say, yeah, so the resolution needs to have a set dollar amount. So if you don't have a specific, then I put in an amount not to exceed.
Okay, so let me just put it this way. If we look at if I go to the budget, hang on a second, I'm gonna go off the cuff here.
Can you double it?
Well, here's the thing. Let me pull up the application and look at the budget. If we do, I think if we put in 100,000 as the cost and not to exceed 100,000, because we're talking one bathroom, correct?
Right.
And then it would be a 50,000 match requirement. Does that seem?
It's not going to cost that much, but that way we'll have it. We need our
What does
architectural
it matter?
drawings and plumbing or whatever else.
You're
Well,
on the
we would
same
need to
page as
we would need to do drawings. Well, but even if you wanted to put in what is it? I don't even know what it needs.
But my question is, Nick, does it really make a difference? Because you're not going to use the money because it's just not what the project costs. You're only going to spend what the project costs. So erring on the side of caution just seems reasonable.
It does, because you're not allocating or expending those funds by this resolution.
Yeah.
You're just earmarking them, if you will.
Right.
So then earmark 75,000.
Okay. And Sabrina, I'm happy to provide some help with the legwork and walking through exactly what I noticed at the community center. And I apologize that I'm driving you guys crazy because I know there's a
No. It's a great idea. It's a great
right,
idea.
and
Thank you.
I literally just thought of it because I was like, oh, I was there 2 Saturdays ago. And of course I saw you at town hall the other day and it didn't even like, sorry. It's
okay. Listen, we can do the thing that Lauren, I think sending me an email with the hit list of things that you think could be done. I need to put together, I need to have the engineer put together a cost estimate. I can get this done.
Okay. I'd be happy to do that. Okay.
Yeah. But my one question, because we had to do we did the public notice. I think we'll be okay. You just have
It's
to add
bathrooms.
you have to add it to the resolution.
Okay.
But I think if you can't get it done in time for any reason, obviously don't let the grant
Affect the other one, right?
application-
Come on, we'll get it done. I'll try.
All right, so Nick, want to amend it as we need it?
I'm sorry, say again?
You want to amend it as appropriate? So
Yes. Let me pull it
Yeah,
up.
I think it's the last whereas clause. Consider submission of an application to renovate the bathroom facilities in Newcastle Town Hall and the community center.
And within the senior center at the community center.
Okay.
Yep, as so amended.
Yep.
And the associated dollar amounts with that.
as we just discussed.
Yes.
Okay, so we have enough, Jeremy, for the board to adopt that motion as just read, and we'll conform it. We just need someone to make a motion in second.
So are we closing this out now then and just have a motion?
If there's
No
no
one,
public
no one in
comment,
the public,
Sorry, I apologize, of course.
no one in the public has their hand raised at this time.
All right, so then I can take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
and the motion is to close the public hearing.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next would
And
be the
now for the
motion.
resolution, right?
That's a motion to adopt the
Well,
CBDBG.
Well, we can do all the resolutions together. So are we ready to go on to resolutions?
I think that's the last one.
That's the last
That's
one,
the
because you
last
previously
one,
did the
that's
other
it.
one.
Okay. So someone want to take it?
So it's really just a motion to adopt the community development block grant resolution as appearing in the board's agenda packet and as modified during the discussion at the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to leave you.
Bye, Sabrina. Thank you so much.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate it.
Sabrina.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I think motion to adjourn and we're done.
Yeah, I think so.
Buddy?
Motion to adjourn. I move to adjourn, sorry. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
Tiffany, have a great trip.
Bye, everyone.